Nice bit of shepherding by Frame Barton.
Goal.
It's a goal. No.
Yes, it is. Boots in towards goal. He's got Hudson. Centering kick for Brownless. Sets himself. Ambulance marked it.
You watch the fight, Doug. I'll watch the footy.
Lockett. Left foot. Goal. Look at that big pack of players. Great mark to Royce Hart.
Compton picks up the ball, slams it goal, and puts it through.
Sheldon picks it up. Runs it all over goal. Who's there? Schimmelbusch and Bremner. In comes Egan Knights. Takes the magnificent mark right over the top.
On ABC Radio and ABC Grandstand Digital.
Oh, there's the siren.
This is Vintage Grandstand.
Hello and welcome to Vintage Grandstand, where we relive a classic match from the ABC's extensive archives. Today, a 1984 vintage for you, a thrilling grand final between Essendon and Hawthorn. While the Bombers and Hawks failed to make the finals in 2020, the two were powerhouse sides of the 1980s, playing in 3 consecutive deciders. During the course of the next few hours, we'll replay the original ABC commentary of the match and speak with key players from both sides as well. Simon Madden and Mark Harvey from the Premiership-winning Bombers. Hawthorn champions Dermot Brereton and Gary Ayres will also join us. And Essendon's legendary coach Kevin Sheedy will reflect on a match that saw him lauded for his tactical nous, his first premiership as coach, ending a 19-year drought for the club. Alistair Nicholson, Matt Clinch, Adam Ramanaskas and Cameron Ling are with you for Vintage Grandstand. Good afternoon to you, Clinchy.
G'day, Al, and good afternoon to all our listeners. It's been a great opening week of finals, hasn't it? And this is where we have a bit of fun reminiscing back 16 years ago, the last time the Bombers won a final. So let's go back to their glory days where they were one of the powerhouses of the competition in 1984. A rematch in many ways of the grand final the year before, 1983. 12 months ago, Hawthorn had thrashed Essendon by a record margin of 83 points. So there was a lot of hype around the Bombers as to whether they'd be able to turn the tails on Hawthorn. And, of course, the Hawks were part of that dominant era of Richmond, Carlton and North Melbourne, who really dominated VFL footy in that time. Not quite the record crowd at the MCG, 92,685 fans, which was the smallest crowd for some 29 years. It was a chilly day. In late September, 13 degrees, and there was a bit going on between the MCC and the VFL as well back in those days. But it was a great occasion, and there's some great stories that come out of it, and great characters of footy who'll get to share their journey throughout the afternoon. Yeah, there was a bit going on. I think Waverley Park tied up in it all, and members there that may not have turned up. 0437 774 774 is the number if you want to send us a text message if you've got some recollections of this game, or indeed if you were there. Or you can give us a call, 1300 222 774. I would suspect Adam Ramanaskas, Essendon Premiership player, is going to have a very enjoyable afternoon reliving this one. G'day, Rama.
Yes, good afternoon. It is. Look, this is very special to be involved in something like this. I've been fortunate enough to have a really good relationship with a lot of these guys. When I first got to the club, these players that played in 84 and 85 were just legends of the football club. Sheeds would have them at the club all the time talking to us younger players. When they came, Sheeds would, he sometimes wouldn't even come out on the training track. He would sit with those guys and have a cup of tea with them, and then 45 minutes into the training session, Sheeds would wander out with them and start talking to them. But, you look at the names, Tim Watson, Leon Baker, Mark Harvey, Billy Duckworth, Terry Danaher, Roger Merritt, 300 games Roger played. Gary Foles, 300 games for Essendon. His daughters actually taught both my kids at primary school. Alan Ezard, Simon Madden, who we're going to talk to, Paul Vanderhaar. Just, the names that are in that team. And I'm missing some, but just champions of the club. And it's very, very special 84, 85.
And their names that endure. Cameron Ling, welcome to you.
Thank you, Al. Good to be here. Yeah, when you go through those names, it is quite remarkable. And a young bloke named on the bench, Mark Thompson, had an incredible influence on my career and my life. And the way he used to talk about his old premiership teammates, it was just with this reverence of Simon Madden, as you said, who we're going to talk to soon. Bomber wouldn't shut up about Simon Madden. just adored him, and Terry Danaher as well. And we were trying to work this out just off air. TD coached me at Essendon in my one and only reserves game for the Bombers, and Rama was playing that year. We're trying to work out if we played in that game together, but we can't remember. That's no good. And then you go to the Hawthorn team and think of those legendary names and some of the crossover of their incredible 1970s teams, and then the new generation that then went on to dominate through 86, 88 and 89 premierships, and Dermy is the young upstart centre-half forward coming in, and I know it was the following year that he had that phenomenal game, but what a group of names there for that Hawks team as well.
Terry Wallace, Gary Ayres, Lee Matthews, Dermot, Dipper, Chris Mew, Colin Robinson, who won the Norm Smith the year before, Rodney Eade, Michael Tuck. So star-studded, both the teams.
I think 10 players from this game went on to become senior VFL, AFL coaches. So it bred the next generation of great teams and great players as well.
We'll be speaking to Simon Madden in just a moment. 0437 774 774 if you want to be part of it all. Today, the 1984 VFL Grand Final. We're going to replay large sections of the ABC Grandstand call of the match with Peter Booth, Smokey Dawson and Doug Bigelow, prominent members of the commentary team. Swanee Mackay's involved as well, but the byplay between Doug Bigelow, former Essendon player, and Smokey Dawson at times, and Peter Smooth Booth is well worth the listen, that's for sure. Just for those listeners who aren't aware of the story, Lingy, how did you come to play a reserves match at Essendon?
Oh, so it was back in the days when the under-18 competition, the TSC Cup, the top age players, if an AFL reserves team was short, they could go and get 18-year-old players. So I played one game for the Bombers, coached by TD, against Collingwood. Collingwood flogged us that day. And I hardly got a touch. And I was a pretty good under-18 player, a little bit of a reputation. Maybe he was going to get drafted. I reckon TD was a touch disappointed with me that day. Didn't quite live up to the billing. And then played 2 games for the Hawks under Peter German.
Peter German.
One game against North Melbourne where just one of those days where the footy followed you around and you had a good day at Punt Road. The North Melbourne reserves coach that day was Mark Bomber Thompson, who got the job at the Cats next year. So a little bit of luck, and didn't get a kick the following week against the D's out at Waverley.
So it was such a dominant period for the Hawks. I mean, 71, 76, 78, and then Essendon had played in 20 grand finals. They were chasing their first flag since 1965, but it was a different era of footy. We were talking just before we came on air about some of the players who arrived at football clubs as young prodigies, be it Dermot Burton. I think he was 15 when he finally walked in the doors of Hawthorn, and they were desperately trying to get him to come at 14. Tim Watson at 15. Simon Madden, I think, was 16 or 17 when he walked through the doors at Essendon. And Hawthorn coached by the legendary Alan Jeans, who had led the Saints to their only premiership in 66. Kevin Sheedy retired as a player in 79, learned a lot under Tony Jewell at the Tigers. They won the premiership in 1980, so looking forward to chatting to Sheeds a bit about that. And then the Bombers and their push to try and win that premiership after being belted in 83. So there's a bit of history to work our way through over the next couple of hours.
Well, that 83 grand final gets mentioned a lot. Like Sheeds would talk about that often, particularly when we had a bad defeat. He would talk about 83, and then 22 games later, the club's a premiership team. 92, he talks about when Hawthorn belted the club, I think by 150-odd points. And then he's 30 games later in 93, Essendon premiers. So Sheeds used a lot of that sort of stuff to motivate his players, and we'll get to talk to him obviously a little bit later, but he loved that stuff. He loved just reminding a playing group 83, and that was the motivation, no doubt, for those players.
And it must have been a hurdle to overcome the Hawks at that time. They lose 83 by a massive margin. Through 84, they finish top of the ladder, game clear, lose both games to the Hawks, and then lose again to the Hawks in the second semi-final and have to go the long way through to the grand final. That little mental barrier of overcoming them, and then Kevin Sheedy found a way. I don't know what was said at three-quarter time. We'll find that out, but what a last quarter they had.
Well, some of his positional switches and moving defenders into an attack, the likes of Billy Duckworth, had quite the impact.
So some worked
and
some didn't they? Simon Madden started at full forward. That didn't quite work as the footy was down the other end the whole first quarter.
Well, there's no better person to elaborate on all of that than the man himself. Simon Madden joins us on Vintage Grandstand. Simon, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen. It's good to talk to anybody about football in this strange
we're with you. We are with you.
Especially a privilege to speak to all you gentlemen. And I use the term gentleman very broadly, okay?
What were you doing in the forward line at the start of the 1984 Grand Final?
Look, I was just listening on the lead-up that Sheeds was great. Like, people think he did those moves just in the Grand Final, but Sheeds was moving blokes around all season and probably for a couple of seasons. So when a lot of people said, it was just this brilliant tactical move, we just said, here's another game that Sheeds is playing, let's go round the roundabout, we'll just go here and there. So he just tried me there. I think he wanted a bit I think Roger was classed as being more aggressive than most people in the league, let alone more than me. So I think he put him in there. It didn't quite work. I remember I've seen since that somebody said, I think early in the third quarter or something, I was sitting on the bench and Steve Phillips, I think, was the, God rest his soul, was the interviewer, and they went through to him and said, what's Simon doing? He asked the bench, what's Simon doing on the bench? I said, there's nothing wrong with him. He's just not playing well. They were pretty straightforward in those days, boys.
Yeah. It didn't last long, though, your little stint in the forward line at the start of the game, because Lee Matthews will hear very shortly kicks a goal within 30 seconds, and almost instantaneously Sheeds has realised he needs to make a move, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's the thing. He's not one of, how coaches even these days, back then too, that I'll give a bloke a chance. And sometimes he did. He'd give a bloke a chance if he kicked 2 goals straight. Other times he said, no, let's just mix it up really quick so they'll have to react. He wanted to get the opposition reacting. So, and look, I heard up the lead up too that we'd got to, and it was really interesting. It was a long period between drinks for Essendon. We got to a grand final. I think in '83 a lot of people were just really happy to be there. So when we got beaten by then a record score, and I'm glad this side's been beaten twice, so people don't talk about it as much. It was a record score back then. They were a great side, Hawthorn. They were, and you look at the history over the 80s. So we were, and so to not beat them during the season, and then in the second semi, I think it was, where a lot of people said it was a great game. Rodney, I think, kicked the goal in the dying seconds out of the goal square to make it 7. It was under a kick. And it was about, I think in the end, 7 or 8 points difference, something like that. And, we were devastated. But this is where you've got to give Sheeds credit. He was always the motivator. And so we went in the meeting after the game and you could feel the devastation of the room. And you don't, a lot of times you remember how they make you feel. But I remember Sheeds saying, look, they're the best team. And he put his fingers up very close together. And we're just that far from it. So you went in the meeting devastated. You come out of the meeting thinking, yeah, actually, we're not far away. We can do this. And so when the game started away, we had a lot of the ball. I think it was something like that, 6-1 to them, and we kicked 5 points or something. So there was a lot of 1-5 or something like that. There was a lot of play for us, but we weren't getting the score on the board. And over the course of the game, we kept getting the play, and I think, again, at that three-quarter time, that motivation, and of course, being about, umpteen years later, also I started it all with the first hit out, but, it was actually, I think, a lucky hit. Daisy Williams got it, hit it down to a Leon Baker, who was just sensational playing kick the goal. And I remember then he never got excited. He was just this real cool, calm, fantastic player. And he kicked the goal in the first few seconds and he started dancing and he got excited. I remember thinking to myself, well, geez, if he's going to get excited, I'm going to get excited. So there's something going on here. And then we rolled along, and I think it's still a record comeback in a grand final. The last quarter, I think North kicks more than that to equal to get a draw, but we're actually that's the longest or the most points behind that a team in a grand final's come back from. So, and I think we kicked 9-5 or 9-6 or something like that in the last quarter, which well, nobody kicks that in the game these days, let alone a quarter. So it was a pretty good result. So, we were quite happy. It'd been, as I said, a long time between drinks, so it was just great for the players and the club.
Hey, Simon, can you take us back, obviously? You got to the club in 74. You're obviously 17. Stars of success as a
16, but we won't count.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry, Tim's still got the record. It reminds you that all the time, doesn't it? But you spoke about playing in the grand final in 83 and just the club just being happy to get there.
Yes.
Can you let the listeners understand the speech that Sheeds gave after the game? I think was it at the function?
Look, it was realistic. It was a real issue because I think it was the Southern Cross function, and of course that's where all the big functions are held back then. Now there's lots of options, but that was the biggest place, and the seconds had actually won that day in the VFL. So there's a whole group of blokes who really have about winning a grand final. And Sheeds gets up there and he says, "Look, I don't see anybody smiling. I don't think it should be a day for smiling for people. If you accept the loss today." you're never going to be a good club. We're never going to be a good club. And a lot of people paid a lot of money to sit there, and so they wanted to have a big night. And a lot of people took offence at it. So hang on, And I remember sitting there and saying to my wife, Mary, I turned around and said, well, that's not as harsh as I thought it was going to be. So he didn't hold back, and I think that was fair enough. He really wanted, he'd come from the successful side, and he really wanted success. And so, and I know when he started in 81, he was a raw coach, but he was just a passionate coach. He was a cunning coach, I suppose. We talk about that, but he was a passionate coach about success. So he really didn't want us to accept losing a grand final is, that's okay. Making a grand final or losing, especially that way, is okay. So he really made this strong point. I can remember saying, well, fair enough. I mean, he's the coach. He's expressing himself. But I can remember other people going, that's a bit harsh for such a celebration. But I thought it was fair enough.
In 80 and 81, you were captain of the side. Then Terry was captain in 82. Most guys would probably drop their bottom lip a little bit if they got the captaincy taken off you. But your game actually went to another level through that period of time when you weren't captain. How did you handle that personally?
Oh, look, good on you. It's a good question. I think back then I was a very young captain, and I was probably too immature. I mean, these days the captains get a lot of training and they give a lot of direction, and I was sort of given I was 21 when I was named. I think I was 22 when I played as captain, and I just got given the cap and said, off you go. And you're sort of not sure what to do. So, I'm not sure if I took the football serious enough. And then Sheeds, back then I probably think he wasn't developing my confidence very well. So I ended up in 82. I think in 82 I ended up sitting on the bench for the seconds, which is a whole part of history. And you sort of go, and I'd won a couple of best and fairest, played 150 games, been captain, got sacked as captain. And so you come to the end of the season, and it's a really interesting one because I use it not as a pat on the back to me, but an example of how you can actually, realise you can control your own destiny. So at the end of that season, I can remember thinking to myself, I said, all right, there's people at the club who have a different view of my ability than what I do. So I'm not pointing the finger at them, but I remember saying to myself, so what am I going to do about it? And I can remember saying, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to win the best and fairest next year, which is a bit cheeky because you could have an injury, but I'd already won. It's like a young person saying I'm going to do something. I already won a couple of best and fairest. I remember saying, right, I'm going to win the best and fairest. That was in 83. So, and I won the best and fairest in 83, and I won the best and fairest in 84, and I won an all-Swiss medal in 85. Now, that's a great, beautiful. But what it was, I can remember saying to myself, when I said I'm going to win the best and fairest, actually, what I was saying is I'm going to do everything to get my form back to where it was beforehand. And so you do, and so you realise that you actually, while you need everybody around you as a player, all your coaches, all your phys ed people, etc., you're the person who, in the end, the responsibility lies with. So you can point your finger at anybody else, but in the end, you're the person who has to control your destiny, and that was a great example for me on how it can be done.
We're speaking with Simon Madden on Vintage Grandstand. Today we're reflecting on the 1984 VFL Grand Final between Essendon and Hawthorn. Alistair Nicholson, Matt Clinch, Adam Ramanauskas and Cameron Lee.
Simon, just looking through the starting team as it was listed, I look at the bench and these two young little upstarts, Mark Harvey and Mark Thompson, sitting there. Great careers they went on to have, and both coaches, and obviously Bomber a huge influence on me. What are your memories of those two young pups back in 84?
Well, I was just so envious and jealous because it took me 10 years to get to a grand final and then get beaten by a record score and another year to win one. Their first and second years. Harv's first year and Bomber's, I think we might as well class it his first year. I think he had 2 or 3 games a year before. So here are these young pups and, great players and great experiences, but just... great talent. They just, we'll just jump in the side and see how we go. really well. And they both, I look at, Bomber, how he used to just come off the halfback line and, sort of play with experience ahead of his time. And Harves had this fearlessness where he had blinker, when he started, he had blinkers. So he'd go into position, go into packs in positions, you sort of go, he's going to get his head knocked off. And he would. And then later on, he did the same thing, but his peripheral vision got better. And he actually turned his body and protect himself, etc. But they were just great talented players. And to get, I've always said about any side, and you guys would know this, Geelong sides, you know this too, is it? A good side, it's not who you put in, it's who do you leave out. So you look at the players who get left out because, and you know, the young talented guys come in, then you know you've got a good side because you've got to leave good players out. So, and they were good enough to push themselves into the side, and they both had great careers, and I had the great respect for both of them for their football work.
Speaking of great players and great teams, the opposition on that day, the Hawks. Who do you rate as? Lee Matthews is probably the obvious one as one of the greatest of all time, but. Going into that game, who did you rate as the absolute best of the best for the Hawks? Who were the top couple?
Oh, look, I don't want to say Dermy, but Dermy was. You know, like he wants me to say that. No, but we always had a huge respect for Gary Ayres because he was just sort of a leader in the side. And also, I sort of think that Coach Alan Jones was very good at getting a team really connected together, and I think that was one of their strengths, that they were really good at everybody carrying their weight. And I've said before about that era. I mean, you know, I of course I'm biased, but I rate our 84-85 side very well because you look at the Hawthorn era at that time. Think about all their grand finals. 83 they win one, 84-85 they lose, 86 they win, 87 they lose, 88-89 they win, they miss 90 they win 91. Now that's a huge streak of success for a club, and for us to beat them twice in the grand final means we must have been all right because they were a great club. So I always say Jeremy was great. Gary Ayres was great. There was lots of other great players throughout the side. I'd have to go through a long list. But we always saw them as a great team, a really, really good team that was not necessarily built on individuals, but it was built on people working together as a team. So it was, really, really good.
Simon Madden's joined us on Vintage Grandstand. We're about to play out the first quarter of the 1984 grand final between Hawthorn and Essendon. Footy's big business now, Simon. You'd won a premiership in 84 and 85, a Norm Smith medalist. It was possibly big business for you. There was a lure to move to Sydney. How keen were they to get you to the Swans, and what were they willing to do to get you there?
Look, it's become a little bit of folklore, but it's true. The great Dr. Edelson had taken over, and he was offering the world to everybody, and I was actually I had two offers. So, I mean, as you said, I just played in two grand finals, won a Norm Smith medal, and I was out of contract, which is sensational. Bargaining, because Rammer as a manager, you know, that's sensational.
Ching, Simon.
And I had this meeting. I won't take too. I had this meeting with Peter Jess, he's still a manager, was my manager back then. He organised for a meeting on Caulfield Cup morning at his office in Fletcher Street in Essendon, and I got there. I remember saying, he said, look, just talk to him. You know, you don't have to do anything. And I said, he's got all this publicity. He's talking to all these players. I wouldn't mind meeting him just for interest's sake. And I got to Fletcher Street, and there was a big limousine sitting out the front on Caulfield Cup Day. And I thought, I hope that's the good doctors, or I'm paying my accountant far too much money to get right. So we got there, and he'd already spoken to a couple of players, and Merv Nagel, again, God rest his soul, great player for us. I was sitting in one office, and he came out of the other office in the hallway, and I looked out the door and said, what do you reckon, Merv? He said, see you in Sydney, straight out the door, you know. And I thought, oh, okay. And then the good doctor came in, and we had this negotiation, and in the end, he offered me, it was this money, it was $450,000 over 3 years, $100,000 cash to sign up, and $450,000 over 3 years, which is $550,000, which I think equate now to something like $4.4 million over 3 years. and I can remember, you know, the bum nearly falling out of my pants while he's talking about this. I'm thinking, catching a piece of leather, kicking a piece of leather around, and I'm, you know, you play your poker face, and I said, oh, yeah, well, I've got a few issues. And he said, what issues? What problems? I said, look, I've just bought a new house, I've got a new family, I've got a new job. And back then, I hadn't been a teacher for years, but back then I was a teacher. And he said, well, what do you do for a job? And I said, I'm a teacher. And he went, I'll get your job, I'll buy your school. And there you go. And I said, now we're talking.
So it does beg the question, why didn't you go?
And that was the thing, because then, and he wanted me to sign that next day because he wanted to be training on the Monday because he wanted Merv Nagel, Glenn Hawke and myself to train, and he wanted to be able to say to Sheets, look, I've broken up your premiership side, come too, because he wanted Sheets. But I just thought it was too quick to sign, so I said, look, no, you don't sign in 2 days from one day. You've got to think it through. And anyway, the second offer was, you think about the second offer was $1 million over 10 years, which is play for 5 and coach for 5. And I thought, now this is just getting ridiculous. Nobody can prepare and say, oh, we're going to have this bloke in 5 years, he's going to coach. And it started to become a bit unrealistic. And I think, you know, I mean, it wasn't blind loyalty. I mean, we had a great time at Essendon, but I think it was, back then there was two amounts of money, one you got offered and one you got, and they weren't necessarily the same thing. And I don't know if I ever believed that And you find out, like, a lot of blokes got the money, but they were under a whole lot of pressure, the Swans, back then at that stage. So I just never thought that the reality would actually, turn up. And we had, a really good side, and we had a good future. It looked like a good future for Essendon. So the combination meant I'd stay and keep my time at Essendon.
Wow, in the days of loyalty.
He was Buddy Franklin before there was Buddy Franklin. He just didn't take it.
Now, Simon, we're about to hear the first quarter. 7 minutes into it, there's a bit of a fracas, a bit of a box on, and you and Ian Payton are trading blows big time. Now, you got reported, didn't you? What happened?
I was doing nothing, and I thought I better do something. And I wasn't even angry. I just said, I better do something. And I'll throw those powder puff punches, seriously. Nick Nerfato, the boxing coach, after the game looked at me. I came in and he looked at me, and we all celebrated. He looked at me and just shook his head and said, oh, no, that was terrible. But I think I actually got one or two in. But I think if you see that if there's an uncut version, I actually get one in, I think. But they flashed to me, to the game, me and Eaton back and forth. So we actually missed the punches. So in actual fact, I never really hit him. But it was. But the funny thing was that we're both hanging on to our shirts, looking at each other. And funny enough, I'm throwing these silly, terrible haymakers, and he's looking over my right shoulder, and I think it was Glenn James is staring right at him. So he couldn't throw anything back. He was just dodging and weaving, trying to protect himself. And then, but I did. In the end, the umpire was wrong, so I got off, so it was okay. I never suspended.
Just a quick one's come through on the SMS, Simon. What was the better premiership, 84 85?
Oh, look, I think I love 85. It was just we were the best side. We knew we were. We played like we were, and we won. But I think the first one's still really, really. It's still. I've only got two because you talked to Tucky. He's got 7 and all that. But if he gets which one was good, he's got so many. I think the first one, because I just remember it, because there's a mix of emotion. There's so many things you feel at the end. There's relief, there's surprise even that you've done it. There's just a lot of pride. You've done it, pride in your team. I think at the end of the siren I just looked around for the nearest player, and it was Tim Watson. And, I just grabbed him and hugged him. It was, that's just that moment when the siren went. And I think the last 3 or 4 minutes where you see that you've got the ascendancy and the plays with you, and you see that it's not going to go the other way. You're still playing out to the end, but you can actually start to see, we think we've got this game won. I think those last 3 or 4 minutes are really, really good too. But when that siren went, I just thought, because you spent all these years working towards that, and it's like in any job or any life, that you're working towards something and you actually achieve it. There is a real lot of satisfaction with it too.
Simon Madden, great to catch up. Thanks for your time today. Enjoy the afternoon listening to the 84 Grand Final with us.
Look, I'll put my feet up and just sit there with a big smile. Yeah, thanks very much, Chet.
Beautiful.
Much appreciated.
Great chatting.
Simon.
That's Simon Madden on Vintage Grandstand on 0437 774 774. We've had a lot of listeners texting in with their memories of this match. Maggie, the bomber from Bendigo, says, hello, boys. My friend Wilma, now deceased, and I were in the outer. So cold we had garbage bags wrapped around us under our coats. The day was going downhill until our Bombers started the rally to the best comeback. The feeling of exhilaration when the siren sounded was unbelievable. I remember a couple jammed next to us had just flown in from somewhere overseas. The trip home to Bendigo was like having gone on one of those trips. Thank you, Maggie, for your reflections. 0437 774 774. And Derek says, gentlemen, great to hear these vintage calls and reminiscing. Paul Weston's last quarter was pivotal, and he must have been relieved to finally win a flag after suffering 6 grand final losses across his SANFL and VFL career prior to this win in 84. Thank you, Derek. We better get to the action, Clinchy. The 1984 Grand Final. We're going to play large chunks of the ABC commentary of the day, headed up by Peter Booth and Smokey Dawson, and alongside them, Doug Bigelow.
Rowan Saws bounces the ball. The Grand Final in 1984 underway. Payton goes up against Merritt. Brereton comes in, free kick in the centre, and it will go to Hawthorn. Was going to Essendon originally, but Brereton got one high, so the free kick is taken off the Bombers. Brereton to half forward. Byrne comes out. Ball off the pack. Taken by Lester Smith. Quick hand pass to Matthews. Ducks out of a high tackle, and he's put a goal on the board in the first 25 seconds of the Grand Final. A goal kicked by Lee Matthews.
Come on, Biggs, find the words.
I'll find the words, all right. Don't have any worry about that, and I won't
get excited about anything at all until Essendon hit the front, perhaps.
The Hawks first to score. They're a goal. Centre bounce. No one can get it, and it's going to be a free kick. Essendon's way.
I saw that
Hawthorn's
one.
Way. Payton.
Against Merritt. Went for the man.
And Payton now in the centre. High kick up towards half forward. Judge is there, getting a bit of a push in the back. No free kick. The ball comes to ground. Robertson. Open goal. 20 metres out. Runs in. And the second on the board. The second goal on the board in the grand final to Hawthorn. And the clock showing 1 minute and 22 seconds. 2 goals in 82 seconds in the 84 VFL grand final. Biggs.
Don't want a repetition of last year. I hope I'm not about to see it, but it's a great start by Hawthorn. That's all I can say. And 2 free kicks out of the centre have been the instigation of this.
Madden going onto the ball. Merritt going to full forward.
Didn't last long.
Lasted 1 minute and 50 seconds.
Vintage Grandstand on ABC Radio and ABC Grandstand Digital.
The kicking up towards half-back on the member side. Picked up by Dippy Domenico. Good tackle by Williams. Picked up by Wallace, though. Wallace on the half-back into the centre. Punched away. No, Gary Foles missed it. A chance here for the running. Robertson, he's got the ball now. Drives long. The ball bouncing, and it's a goal. He's popped it through, Robbo. Colin Robertson for his second goal. Far too much toe for Gary Foles. Picked it up just beyond the point of the square. Ran towards the half-forward flank. Then he straightened up and it rolled through from about 6 or 7 metres out. What a flying start by Hawthorn. They lead by 18 points to 1. 3 goals to Essendon, 1 behind 1 point. 4 minutes exactly on the clock in the 84 grand final.
You summed it up very well there, Peter, because the pace of that Robertson was just too much for Foles. He didn't gather him at all well.
It comes to the grandstand side. McCarthy's his target. Dippy Domenico nearly held the mark. The loose ball is free. Kicked off the ground cleverly by Lester Smith. He'll get there first. Wallace perhaps just. Ooh. Crash comes Duckworth. Stands his ground, does well. Wallace comes back at him and he gets him. He gets rid of the ball. Baker gets caught. Takes a long while to get rid of it. Hawthorn free kick. Great tackling by Hawthorn. The tackling done by Judge. Big man in the centre of the ground is Payton, all on his own. That's where the pass is directed. He gets it over the top. It'll go to Swab with the short foot pass. Swab is off and running. He steadies, runs up the centre half forward. Good bit of shepherding by Russo. The long kick to the goal square. It's still in play. Matthews. He gets tackled low. Gets rid of the ball. Loveridge kicks the goal. 4 goals to Hawthorn. Great play by Loveridge. He was there. Matthews shoveled the ball out to him. And tremendous play. Payton set up the loose man in the centre circle. Judge fed the ball to him. And on to Schwab. Schwab onto full forward. And the goal to Hawthorn, kicked by Loveridge.
Well, the big thing now, as far as Essendon is concerned, can they recover from this shock start? Shock start for them, but not by Hawthorn. It's been superb play by them in making the most of every opportunity. Can the Dons get back?
It was the first 15 minutes in the second semi-final that won the game for the Hawks when Ken Judge exploded, but now it's a lot of individuals up forward for Hawthorn exploding. Centre bounce and Madden, or a feeble tap down. He gets it, tries to get a kick away, can't do so. Picked up by Wallace, his grab. Russo going in, and there's a player being legged.
In danger, the kick in danger.
Okay, and there's a little bit of a melee on behind play.
Yes,
it's Wallace silly. And also Madden. The ball coming up towards the half-forward line for the Bombers. Punched away by Mew. The fight's still on the far side. Watch it, fellas. Picked up by Hurd of Essendon. Gets the handball away. Up to Donnell. Donnell's kicking towards Baker, and Baker marks in front of the smoker stand on the half-forward line. He's going inboard towards Van der Haar and finds him at centre half-forward. And he put his knee up in protective fashion.
This game should be stopped when there's something as ugly as that going on.
The fight is still going on. Van der Haar's kick up to outnumbered up there. Ezard, Essendon's only chance, he might know it's off his fingers. No, over at somebody's shoulders against Ezard. He was forced into the error because he was outnumbered. And yes, somebody
Snowy
has been
James
reported on that far side. Dippy Domenico now on the wing, in the crest. He goes to our left, up towards the Richmond end. Tuck coming in from the side, and he gets it too. Good mark.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And a 15-metre penalty.
Yes, and this will bring him, I was going to say, about a kick and a fraction out from goal. And the panel behind us saying no discipline, and this is where the Bombers will lose it. And a 15-metre penalty brings Tuck within 30 metres of goal on a slight angle just wide of half forward. Left half forward, Richmond end, and he fires, and he's missed it. And the rain trickles, but the sun is still shining here at the MCG. But the Lord or the sun, whatever, is not shining on the Bombers at the moment. Hawthorn 4-1, Essendon 2 behinds, 2 points, 12 minutes in the grand final first term. The ball threaded out by Russo and taken by Ayres. Left foot kick not good, it fainted and marked by Clark. Clark gets the handball away towards Neagle. Neagle's long hand pass to Bradbury in the practice pitch area. Will he go square? No. Yes, up towards Baker. Green is there. Baker, Green into his back, no free kick. Izzard had a sprint, goes to Danaher. Left foot snap by Danaher, straight up in the air. Goes out towards Izzard, play on the call. He drops it to his feet. He wants support with a hand pass. He gets it nicely from Clark. Scrubby old kick by Clark, but lucky as you like. It's been marked by Baker, just metres out from goal, but on an acute angle. The right forward pocket, the members' pocket, City end, and Leon Baker, who took Collingwood apart in the first quarter last week at VFL Park, almost put paid to Collingwood off his own boot with 3 goals in the first term. He's only a couple of metres out, and he has put it through for the Bombers' first goal. So it's on record that the Bombers scored their first goal in the 1984 grand final after 14 minutes and 13 seconds. Scoreboard, Hawthorn 4-1-25, Essendon 1-2-8 Biggs.
Well, give Bradbury a bit of a rap there too, because he threw caution to the wind to come down and set that up. But the Dons a little bit lucky. They've got to settle down. They're playing, as we all agree in this commentary box, quite undisciplined and foolish football. Already reporting the match, and it's pretty hectic.
Ball back in the centre with the Glenn James, Madden and Payton doing the centre bounce ruck work. Down to Clark of Essendon, whose high kick goes across towards the grandstand, the southern stand wing. Ball back into play, grabbed by Wallace. He brushes Russo, his teammate, aside. Wallace puts Hawthorn into attack. Matthews in front. Sandwich out to Foles. Foles drops the ball. Kick comes back towards Tuck. No, it's Judge. He weaves his way through the pack. Back to Wallace from centre half forward. Wallace has hurried kick towards full forward. Oh! And a mark taken by Weston.
There's a little bit more of the stuff going on too, coming from brown and gold colours. So they're all a little bit toey.
Oh, Matthews went the hard tackle, I will admit that, Biggs.
Yes, a little bit crude though.
He missed, but the intent was there, and he's been penalised 15 metres.
Vintage Grandstand.
The kick by Deputy Medico towards the pocket, but it's all Essendon. No, Byrne comes from about third in line to take the mark. Matthews dropping back, calling for it. Now Byrne could just about sink it. Now Ken Judge is calling for it. He wants to really get off the pickets and go high, Ken Judge. Let's see whether he gets it or not. Not a bad kick by Byrne. It's coming back. The high flyers needed. Tuck up. And the mark taken by, is it Brereton? I thought one of the Essendon players may have claimed that. Left forward pocket, Richmond end. No daylight at all. He's right on the boundary line, only about 8 metres out from goal. He should just run around just a metre or so, prop, straighten up, and bang it through for the Hawks' 5th goal. They lead by 25 points to 8. No, he's not going to increase the angle. Now he does. Off and running and pops it through. Goal number 5 to Hawthorn. 5-1-31 in the VFL Grand Final. Essendon 1-2-8. Nearly 20 minutes in the first term. Biggs.
It was a brilliant mark by Brereton. And of course, he decreased the angle by running around and popping through Hawthorn's 5th. Still playing very deliberate and cool football, Hawthorn, after a pretty stirry opening. And Essendon, I thought, appeared just before that goal to have somewhat regained some composure, but they haven't done it yet. They haven't done it on the scoreboard.
Vintage Grandstand on ABC Radio and ABC Grandstand Digital.
Harvey, the new man on, just on the ground, takes the mark for the Bombers, in towards centre half.
There it is again.
Look where he kicks it. Payton. And the big fellow dropping back and kick behind the play takes the mark. Russo calls for it. No, they go to the other side, and Robertson and Wallace out there up high. Wallace, no free kick. Loose ball gathered by Swab. They're still hanging on to him. Swab's free kick at the point of the square. Barrels it across to Robertson. Here's Tuck running with the ball at half forward southern stand side. Beautiful kick by Robertson. Tuck juggles and marks.
It might be a free against Matthews. It was a lovely shepherd day, Lee. Well done.
Plenty of weight being used. I get 15 metres out of that too.
Very astute stuff by Matthews. He got away with it all.
He ran straight at the man who was about to tackle Tuck and shepherded him beautifully. As you said, Tuck had taken the mark. Now Tuck missed one earlier. The only blot on Hawthorn's record in the first term so far when Tuck kicked it behind. He's 35 metres out. 55-degree angle, kicking from the southern stand side.
Yes.
They rise behind the goal at the Richmond end. And he's put it through for Hawthorn's 6th. And they go to 6-1-37. Essendon 1-3-9. The Hawks by 28 points at the 26-minute mark of the first term.
Oh, yes, it was Tuck. It was great play. The mark was absolutely magnificent by Tuck. He had complete control of the football, but Matthews came in with that little bit of heavy shepherding, which I thought was quite unnecessary, a little bit risky, but he got away with it.
Perfect conditions at the MCG. The sun is shining. Centre bounce again. No one can get the tap away. The flick away by Russo. Handball out of the pack to from Wallace finds Harvey up on half back. Harvey's kick across the half back line. Bradbury and Tuck out there. Now Tuck gets it. He's got Swab in support. It's close to the boundary line. They worry one another out of it. Good play, both of them. And it's out of bounds on that far wing in front of Bay 15. Donnell about to come on, so someone else coming off for Essendon. So changes being made. Hawthorn 6-1, Essendon 1-3 in the grand final. From the throw-in, Bradbury now from half-back up towards the half-forward line, up towards the main scoreboard of City and punched off the pack. A chance here for Hurd. Hurd's kicking towards... he's been put down, has he? No advantage free kick. I didn't see it, I just heard the roar of the crowd. Picked up by Danaher, centre half-forward. Fires it towards goal for the Bombers, but he's offline and through from behind. Good defensive play by Mew, but when he punched the ball, he punched it straight into the arms of Danaher, who had a pot shot and should not have missed that one. Kick in by O'Halloran is misdirected, and Danaher will have Bradbury coming off. Danaher within scoring range for the Bombers right on quarter time. Bradbury off and Donnell on. Hawthorn 6-1, Essendon 1-4. 27.5 minutes on the clock in the first term, 2.5 minutes into time on. They really need it. It's coming back, it's through. A goal to Essendon, kicked by Terry Danaher. Scoreboard at the MCG. Hawthorn 6-1-37, Essendon 2-5-17. Comments from Biggs, and of course at quarter time the panel have been pretty vocal behind us today. You may not have picked it up in our headsets, but they'll have plenty to say at quarter time. Hawthorn 37, Essendon 17.
20-point margin to Hawthorn. And David O'Halloran, how badly would you be feeling? You could have gone ping, but you were a little bit overconfident going for the short pass, which was very nicely accepted by Danaher, who did the rest.
Van der Haar's gone to centre half-back on Brereton, and Walsh across to the half-back flank on Tuckers. The ball is tapped away by Payton. Knocked back in towards the circle by Watson. Kicked towards half-forward. Was it by Merritt? Loose ball running for Danaher, who's a metre or two in front of Mew. Gathers it. Screws it back in towards the pocket. O'Halloran dropping back with Donnell, who's back on the ground. And O'Halloran with the front position. Donnell spoiling, pushes it across the line for a throw-in. It's 45 metres from the behind post. Right forward pocket for Essendon going to the main scoreboard goal in this first term. 28 3/4 minutes gone. Hawthorn 37, lead Essendon 16. Over the packet comes Wallace. Knocked forward by Madden, but Wallace tries to scoop the ball out. Still going. Great play, Wallace. Wallace kicks the ball back towards the wing. Now hanging on to Judge. Good play by Hawker. Knocks the ball away, but Green in front. Takes the loose ball. Left foot kick towards half forward. Matthews in front of Blackworth. Puts his body and has support from Di Domenico. Great bit of shepherding by Brereton. Di Domenico pushes the ball back, and Van der Haar is content to let it run across the line for a throw-in.
Half-forward line for Hawthorn. We're about 4.5 minutes into time on, so a chance for the Hawks to score if they can get it away. Kick through the pack by Di Domenico is touched. Play on the call. Russo is there, and an elbow, and Russo is down. So the Hawks have a definite... No, right on quarter time. If there's a 15-metre penalty, he'd have a chance to score, but I'd venture to say he probably... No, he has a look and says, no, I won't take the kick.
No, so he's going to, Peter.
Is he going to take it? I thought he may have reneged on it. How far out? About, 65 metres out from goal. Left forward pocket, kicking towards the Richmond end. And I dare say he'll land about 8 metres short. But a 15-metre penalty would have given him something to fire at and a bit of incentive. It does drop short and fisted away by Baker and the Bomber defence. So, at quarter time, Hawthorn 6-1-37, Essendon 2-4-16. The goal kickers for Hawthorn, Robertson has kicked 2, and singles to Brereton, Loveridge, Tuck and Matthews, and for the Bombers, Baker and Danaher.
Vintage Grandstand.
So a hot start for Hawthorn in the 1984 VFL Grand Final. You're listening to Vintage Grandstand, where we replay ABC commentary of the match. And we talk to champions from the day. And one of those is Dermot Brereton, the 5-time premiership winner with the Hawks. And he joins us on Vintage Grandstand. Dermy, thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
What a start. You're only 20 years of age. You'd played in a premiership the year before, and you're in front by 21 points after a lightning first quarter. Were you feeling pretty confident at that stage of the game?
I actually would have advised the engravers to start making out the word Hawthorn on the cup by that stage. And it wasn't all that well founded, as we saw in the end, but I can remember it... late in the second quarter, we just kept missing shots. I know Essendon kicked poorly too, but it just felt like we had some absolute sodas. And what doesn't get reflected, and you'll hear soon, is is we kicked a few shots at goal completely out on the full that I thought were fairly comfortable, gettable shots at goal. So it was even further enhanced by poor kicking.
Can you take us inside Hawthorn during that era? I mean, you had the 3 grand finals in a row against Essendon, had so much success during the 80s and early 90s. When you first arrived at the Hawks, I think this was your 3rd season, you debuted in the finals, the final against North Melbourne when you played a couple of games in that year, and then a premiership in 83 before the 84 decider. What was the environment like at Hawthorn that you came into?
Well, it's funny enough, the rivalry that ended up being Hawthorn and Essendon actually bloomed out of this. There was no rivalry at that stage. The team, and I'll be blatantly honest, the team we feared the most was Carlton. And the way Alan Jeans coached, he was a tremendously honest coach, and he coached footballers to be honest, go to the footy, win the ball, and move it on. And if you could run and link and use chain handball as it was in those days, nothing like it is now, but if you could move the ball by hand before you got a clear kick to kick it to somebody's advantage, that's what he did. He wanted you to be honest. And we always felt that Carlton had such good small players that they were able to win the ball at the source, but they'd have what even in that era we describe as the odd cheat, who'd get out the back, sit out by himself, hoping the opposition, hoping his teammate would win against superior numbers, kick it forward to him, and he'd start and run and set up the goal or kick the goal. And we struggled with that against Carlton because they were so good at the source. So we really feared Carlton. And Essendon, the only thing we feared from them in terms of what they could bring to the table, even though they were the best team in 84, we feared their physical nature, what Sheedy turned them into. I know they can say the same about us, and well-founded as well. We thought they were a dirty team. and we became eventually as dirty, if not worse, than them. but we really feared Carlton to start with. And when Essendon got hold of us and ran us down in this game we're discussing today, given what we did to them the year before, that's where it was all born.
And Dermot did set up a run for not just the Hawthorn-Essendon rivalry, but the Dermot Brereton versus Essendon rivalry, the famous couple of little moments with Billy Duckworth and maybe a little wander through the three-quarter time huddle against the Bombers. Did you love playing against them, or did you just out and out hate the Essendon Footy Club?
Let me say this and be honest about it, because there is a bit of banter around this. I admire and love the Essendon Football Club. I think they are a wonderful, and I hate the fact that people are taking pot shots at them now. You know, Muhammad Ali, he despised but loved Joe Frazier because it was his greatest enemy. And that's what they thrived off. I felt the same with Essendon. It's been described, I'll have a fight as much as the next idiot in line. And Essendon were always willing to give you that. And Lingy and Rama, I don't know why it is in human psyche, but whenever I felt in danger was the most I felt alive. And if I knew that Essendon were going to bang me in the back of the head every time I went for the mark, Billy was going to stand on your ankle every time you went to ground, or stomp on your hand, or run in and knee you in the ribs if you were on the ground and knee drop you. Who was Daisy Williams for a little bit of a smaller bloke. He was a good, solid, dirty player as well. They had him everywhere. And and Bomber Thompson, gee, I'm going through them all. It just made you feel alive. Roger, it was next year on, but I remember there was a Gavin Keane. Do you remember that? Was it Gavin Keane? Nuts Keane, I think his nickname was. And he came onto the ground. It was the next year. And the poor bugger was run alongside onto his ball-carrying teammate, I ran at the ball carrier and then veered off within 2 or 3 steps, and it was Nuts Keen's first game, and I shirt-fronted him, as you could do in those days. It was totally legal by those standards. It's a 6-weeker now. And it knocked him out, and he got carted off. And anyway, Roger's been moved from centre-half forward to centre-half back. Sheedy thought he'd try and put the wind up me. And Roger was capable of doing that, I might add, as well. And Roger came up and chested into me. I chested back a little bit, and Roger then said the words, "You stay neat and tidy, and so will I." And I looked at him and said, "You got a deal, Roger. Okay."
Dermot Burton's joined us on Vintage Grandstand. Derm, we get the chance to, I guess, chat about this grand final, but obviously your time in footy, and you were renowned as such a big game player. 89 is the iconic moment that comes to a lot of footy fans' minds. Before those sort of games, you kicked 5 on debut in a final. Were you nervous? What were you feeling like? Or were you someone who thrived? You looked forward to that occasion to showcase your best?
I ended up getting nervous later on in my career, when it had all gone past me, and when I didn't have my speed, I didn't have my spring, I didn't have my sidestep, I'd lost my weapons. That's when I started to get nervous, and that was before normal games. When there was a big game and I was young and I knew the prowess you had physically, I was like, yeah, just let me at it. There was no nerves whatsoever, and that's it. I think I look back now and understand how nervy I got later in my career. It was a blessing to be that young, naive and stupid that you didn't have nerves. So it was a blessing in disguise, yeah.
Dermy, Adam from Hobart on the SMS. We've had so many listeners texting in with their memories of this game on 0437 774 774. He says, you have reflected a little bit, but what was Billy Duckworth like to play on? Adam from Hobart's asking.
Yeah, great question. People tend to remember blustering, big, bad Billy Duckworth. Billy was a good player. Billy, was around the 6'1", 6'2" mark. He didn't have a great sidestep. If he did, he'd play up forward. But he was just a wonderful competitor. And he's the kind of bloke that would punch you in the back of the head. And if you got him back, he'd look at you and smile. And it was just fair bets. He just placed fair bets, He'd give you a shot at him. He'd take a shot at you. But he was a very good straight-up player. He had a reasonably good spring. He was a good spoiler. He had reasonably good strength. His number one weaponry was he was just an enormous competitor. He earlier in that year in '84 at Windy Hill, they knocked us over out there. I put my hand down after a contest. I went for the ball in the air, went for the contest, went to ground, put my hand flat on the ground to push myself off. Billy took altered his gait, jumped, stood on my hand and swiveled, and it broke a bone in my hand and it popped up through the skin. So I thought, I owe him one. That old stupid comment. Well, in the final quarter, I was taking a breather down at full forward, and Billy came up to pick me up. I was just in the forward line. Billy sort of crossed over and picked me up for a couple of minutes. And I looked at Billy, and I'd never done this. Contrary to popular opinion, I'd never done this in a game before. It was '84, remember, I'm only 20. And I turned around to Billy and I said those immortal, stupid words that every young footballer says at some stage, and he either backs it up or he looks like an idiot. They've kicked their 9th, I reckon, in the final quarter. We're going out the back door. We're done. So I'm angry. I'm hurt. I've got a bone that still to this day pops up through the back of my hand. And this big bad Billy Duckworth had stood on it and broken it, 10 weeks before. So I looked at him and I said, I owe you one. That stupid comment, I owe you one. and if you don't back it up, the opposition bloke knows he's got you forever. And if you do back it up, you really do have to do something about it. Well, Billy got his index finger and tapped his chin and said, have a go. So I knocked him over. And he went to ground. He went to ground and he got up holding his jaw. And he looked at me and grabbed his jaw and he looked up and he almost like two mates having a pub brawl, just had too much ink in them. He looked at me and said, what you do that for? And I realised the futility of the situation, and I said, I don't know, mate, I'm really sorry.
Oh, Derby. Mate, we've got the news coming up. We'd love to have you on for another half an hour, Derby. We're just getting warmed up on Vintage Grandstand. Really appreciate you coming on for a chat, mate, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Pleasure. My pleasure, guys. Enjoying
Thanks,
listening
Derb.
to it too.
Thanks, Deb.
Dermot Brereton on Vintage Grandstand.
I can't believe he apologised.
84. It was Hawthorn leading by 21 points. We'll have the second term coming up still. Gary Ayres to come. We're going to be speaking with many of the stars, Mark Harvey and Kevin Sheedy as well. But it's news time for now.
ABC News with Satyam Weinstein. There are crowds of supporters of the US President Donald Trump outside the Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, D.C., where he's receiving treatment for COVID-19. Our Washington correspondent David Lipson is there.
Trump's spending a second night here at Walter Reed Military Hospital. He is said to be doing well. Outside of the hospital, quite a scene. Dozens of Trump supporters waving flags, honking horns as cars pass by, and a few counter-protesters as well, and a few minor scuffles breaking out too. The president has delivered another statement to camera from inside the hospital and posted it to Twitter, assuring everyone in America and around the world that he is doing well.
Former New Jersey governor and advisor to the US President Chris Christie has checked himself into hospital after testing positive for coronavirus. Mr. Christie says he's feeling good and only has mild symptoms, but he's taking the precaution because he has asthma. The former governor is one of several allies of Donald Trump to be diagnosed with COVID-19 in recent days. Victoria's new coronavirus cases are back in the double digits as police step up their patrols at Bayside beaches. Yvette Gray reports.
Victoria has recorded 12 new COVID cases and 1 death in the past 24 hours. This compares to 8 new infections yesterday and 7 on Friday. The 14-day rolling average for Melbourne is now down to 11.9, while in regional Victoria it's 0.2. The number of mystery cases is 13, an increase of 2 from yesterday. It comes as police step up patrols at Bayside beaches with another warm day expected to attract crowds to the foreshore. Yesterday, Premier Daniel Andrews urged Victorians to obey COVID restrictions after beachgoers were seen not wearing masks or socially distancing at St Kilda.
WA Premier Mark McGowan says more crew members from the bulk carrier anchored off Port Hedland who've tested positive to coronavirus have recovered. It comes as 3 members were cleared of the virus yesterday, leaving 14 remaining cases from the vessel. The recovering crew remain in quarantine, either on board the ship or in a Port Hedland hotel. Mr McGowan says plans to replace the crew members have changed.
As I've learnt through COVID, things often change, and things that you expect one day to be set in stone subsequently aren't. But the current plan is that the crew members, as they recover, or when they recover, will be put back on the ship and the ship will sail away.
The South Australian government says it's confident the state will be included in the New Zealand coronavirus travel bubble. The Trans-Tasman bubble was announced on Friday and allows New Zealanders to enter New South Wales, the ACT and Northern Territory without quarantining. South Australia hasn't been included in the scheme, but the state has just 1 active case of coronavirus in hotel quarantine and further eased restrictions this weekend. The Minister, David Spears, says he's confident New Zealanders will soon be able to arrive in Adelaide.
We are very confident that we can become part of the Trans-Tasman bubble with New Zealand in the medium term. The federal government's working through that situation with the New Zealand government at the moment, and we hope to have an announcement on that in the coming weeks.
The federal government has announced plans to pay half the wages of apprentices and trainees to increase employment prospects for young people. The pandemic's hit the market for entry-level jobs hard, and the $1.2 billion proposal will be open to businesses across the country in all industries. The Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, says the scheme will support 100,000 new positions.
People who are working as bakers, hairdressers, those who are sparkies, those who are plumbers. We have already announced $2.8 billion of initiatives to support apprentices. This is now going a step further, helping to create new apprenticeships in a very difficult time.
The head of the organisation that monitors zoos in Thailand has been shot dead while investigating the disappearance of a rare animal. It's thought he was killed by a vet in the southern city of Songkhla, where an albino barking deer went missing in February. After the shooting, the vet killed himself. It's thought he was angry about being forced to transfer jobs because of the mystery surrounding the deer. The zoo claims the animal was eaten by a python. The Thai government is dismissing that explanation. And 2 people have died and 9 people are missing in France and Italy after a severe storm hit border regions of the 2 countries, bringing record rainfall and causing heavy flooding. The storm, dubbed Alex, has destroyed roads and at least 100 houses in the city of Nice on the French Riviera. The French Prime Minister says he's shocked at the level of destruction. This is ABC News.
ABC Books, compelling stories from Australian writers.
During the Velvet Revolution, I fell in love with the city of Prague. 30 years on, I've returned to exhume her grisly history. I travel through the Black Palace of the Nazi SS. I meet victims of the communist secret police and the ancient pagan priestess who prophesied, "I see a great city. Its glory will touch the stars."
The Golden Maze by Richard Feidler. Book and audiobook available now in bookshops and online.
Melbourne premiers for 1964, defeating Collingwood by 4 points.
Burke is streaking downfield with a ball, drives it right up in front of goal. There's Hassaman setting himself for the mark and bringing it down.
The dual Brownlow medalist Keith Gregg hasn't moved.
151 coming up for Hudson. Oh, he kicked into the man on the mark. He kicked into the man on the mark and it's out of bounds.
On ABC Radio and ABC Grandstand Digital, this is Vintage Grandstand.
It's been a bit of a difficult year for Hawthorn and Essendon fans. They're not playing a part in the 2020 finals series. They certainly played a big part in the early 80s finals series. On Vintage Grandstand today, we are reliving the 1984 VFL Grand Final between the Bombers and the Hawks. It's quarter time in the ABC match broadcast. Hawthorn out of the blocks, leading 6-1-37 to 2-4-16. Alistair Nicholson with Adam Ramanauskas and Cameron Ling. And alongside me as well is Matt Clinch.
It was a funny year, Al, just looking back on Essendon and that year and Paul Salmon and the injury in which he suffered. I mean, Burnley Quinlan won the Coleman medal for a second straight year. He kicked 100 goals in 83, he kicked 102, he kicked 106 in 83 and 102 in 84. So Paul Salmon had 63 goals from 13 games. It was his second season. He was the leading goal kicker halfway through the season and then suffered that serious knee injury, which he required a knee reconstruction and missed over a year of footy. So Terry Danaher was the leading goal scorer for the Bombers that year with 48, Mark Harvey with 28, but not as potent forward line without Paul Salmon, and that's why listening earlier with Simon Madden having to start forward and trying to have that impact. One more for the Hawks. Well, Lee Matthews had 77 goals in the season. He was 33, I think, from memory. Ken Judge, 66, Dermot Burton, 50, and Peter Curran with 46. Peter Moore won the Brownlow medal for the second time. He was at Collingwood at that stage. The first time he was with Melbourne. And David Cloak was second on 21 votes, and Robert Flower from Melbourne with 19. So
the Lee Matthews stuff, can we just touch on this?
Absolutely.
So 1 year Lee kicked 96 goals and averaged 28 possessions. Like, he's basically averaged 28 and kicked 4 a game.
So
that blows my mind. I was looking with Joey Mercedes one night. We're looking at Lee's stats, and obviously he's the greatest player ever. But his stats are how he did win a Brownlow medal is just it's mind blowing.
We rave the Dangerfield, Dusty Martin. They have 30 possessions and kick 4 goals in a game, and it is a phenomenal game. I remember one time, I think Dangerfield might have done it. I was working with Lee Matthews on Channel 7 and I just kept bombarding him. This is off air. Lee, what was your best game statistic? And he was like, no, and wouldn't give it up. And finally, I just got to him enough. He said, okay, there was one day where I think I had 45 touches and kicked 9. 45 possessions and 9 goals in a game of football or something along those lines. That is phenomenal. Incredible footballer. But that's what this game had.
Yeah, and all these players just left, right and centre. Hall of Famers.
And to think Paul Salmon has said he does his knee halfway through the year. Yeah. He's not playing, and yet Essendon could still kick the score they kicked in this grand final.
But it does show you how different scoring was back in the 80s compared to the game in which we take in now, and each have their own charm and uniqueness about it, but scoring was such a prominent part of the game and big goal-kicking tallies.
And you mentioned earlier the path of Essendon after finishing on top of the table in 84 and losing that first semi-final to Hawthorn by 8 points. The following week, they absolutely belted Collingwood by about 133 points. Leon Baker kicked 6 in that game. He's a key player in this 1984 grand final as well. We're about to play the second quarter for you. 0437 774 774 is the number if you want to get in touch. You've got some reflections on the game. Any memories? Were you there? Hi ABC crew, love your show. It's Rob from Chelsea. Great to hear the 1984 grand final call. I'm an Essendon supporter. I was very concerned during the game up until three-quarter time that Essendon would not win. My dad, grandfather and I went to the grand final the year before too. After the final siren in 84, my dad and I were so happy and probably relieved. I was only in my teens at the time. It was the first time I had seen Essendon be premiers. Still a special memory for my dad and myself even after all this time. Good on you, Rob. That would be a very special memory, no doubt, to share with your family. So many text messages coming in. Paul from Altona, I remember it so well. My mate and myself celebrated big time and forgot to go to work on Monday and Tuesday. Just kept partying.
Just forgot.
Chris reckons, hi guys, Simon, Madden brings back memories of when football was a wonderful game to watch, not like the scrambly rubbish they play today. David from Kew came over from New Zealand and got a seat high in the members, cold as charity. Wife urging me to go off to my sister's place at three-quarter time, but I say, let's wait for the first 10 minutes to see what happens. Billy Duckworth kicks 4 and the Bombers win. Amazing, says David. Billy certainly kicked a few. I'm not sure he kicked 4.
Leon kicked 4.
Yes, he did.
Billy kicked 2.
And Dom remembers, has a memory of 84 Essendon Hawthorn games, an intentional tactic used by Kevin Shetty with 15-metre penalties, he says. Shetty instructing his team to concede as a delaying tactic to stop Hawthorn's slick play-on style. So everyone's got their different memories of what unfolded in 84.
Sheets, can't we? We
will.
can set the record straight.
We will.
Talking about goal scoring through that era and just how special it was, and Derm was talking about they were worried about Carlton so much. They knocked them off in the qualifying final. Collingwood then beats Carlton in the first semi-final. Peter Dacos kicked 7. So just players like that, you kind of think they're not, they weren't the full forward, the typical full forward like a Dunsel or a Lockett or someone like that. But Dacos was still kicking 7 or 8s a game and turning it on in finals.
Who was the last player to kick 7 in a final?
Stephen Kernahan kicked 7 in the grand final of 93, didn't he? In a losing team.
In a final.
1989.
Well, yeah, we can go back and say final now. I can't remember.
Buddy Franklin would have kicked 7 in the final.
Did he kick 8 against Adelaide?
Yeah, he did, including a late one.
Yeah, on the boundary. Yeah.
That's going back a fair way now.
That would be it, though, wouldn't it?
I can't think of many more.
What was Lloydie back in your era?
Lloydie. No, not big finals. He was bags. 4 or 5.
We'll let you blokes delve a little further into this, and we'll take our listeners to the second quarter, the original ABC call of the 1984 VFL Grand Final with Smokey Dawson, Peter Booth and Doug Bigelow, and some little cameos from Swan Mackay, David Swan Mackay as well. So at quarter time it was 6-1-37 Hawthorn, Essendon 2-4-16. Not much happens in the early stages of the second term, so we'll join the action about 8 minutes in.
Payton goes in against Madden. Madden gets a big 20-metre fist to it. In fact, the ball bounces across the centre square line. Knocked away by Green. It comes out towards Swab, who's been a fine player for Hawthorn. He spears it back in towards Payton. Foles calls leave it and takes the mark. He handballs it across the Hurt. Good play by Foles. Hurt is running. He's had 1 bounce. He'll have 2 as he runs towards half forward. He's drawn a player, but the pass, yes, it's okay. It's marked by Harvey. He pops the hand pass over to Donnell. Donnell in the forward pocket, 20 metres out, acute angle. Has he threaded it through? He hasn't. He's kicked it behind. And Douglas, if you'd been young Mark Harvey, would you have gone back and had the set shot at goal?
My word, he's a lovely shot at goal, as we saw last week at VFL Park.
The kick in by Ayres. Hurd had 7 kicks in the first term, so he's had 8 in toto. And for Hawthorn, Ayres is now 7 kicks, Loveridge and Wallace 5 apiece. The kick in by Ayres up towards half-back at the Richmond end of play being held. That player was Baker of Essendon. He'll take the free kick on the point of the square. And he goes for the hand pass across the half-forward line. And Clark's after it. Sees Deputy Domenico. He doesn't flinch, though. Well done. Picked up by Hurd. A hand pass, an effective one. Finds Nagel. Oh, he's been crashed by Payton.
Look at that.
No
right
free
under
kick.
the name under
The mark's been taken by Essendon's Watson on half forward, and that should have been relayed down the field, as Douglas was suggesting. And the short pass finds Hawker.
Hawker, I think
on half forward line, about 55 metres out from goal. Now Hawker has marked that short pass 55 metres out from goal, wide of half forward. Now Hawker thinks he can kick it, taking plenty of time. And he's got onto it. And it's got plenty on it, and it's been fisted away off fingers and through from behind. Essendon team draw the first minor blood in this second quarter. 2-6, the Bombers. Hawthorn 6-1.
Have a look at that wind. Who's it favouring? What end?
That's kicked, although look at that kick, it's almost down to the centre of the ground, and it's beautifully marked by McCarthy. And there's another 15-metre penalty as Hurd is hanging on. McCarthy doesn't wait for it. Slips the hand pass out to Russo. Russo off his left boot. Spears the ball in front of Brereton, who couldn't hold the mark. Van der Haar took plenty of time to get rid of it.
Get a
so
free
now
kick.
Get a free for a push in the back. Play on's a call. The ball taken away for Essendon. The short pass up towards Harvey, who cleverly gets it on the half volley. Slips the hand pass to the running Watson in towards centre half forward. Essendon have the numbers, and the mark is taken for them by Big Madden. Payton on the mark right on the centre square. He's off and running. Gets the hand pass back to little Ezard. Cleverly out towards Clark at centre half forward. Ooh. He had one fumble. Breaks out of a tackle. Shot at goal is offline. And another behind. That one kicked by Clark. So the Bombers on fire at the first 3 minutes of the second term. But they've added 3 behinds when they desperately need goals. They're 2-7-19. Trailing Hawthorn 6-1-37.
The kick in by McCarthy. A huge torpedo out to the far side. Byrne goes up to Wallace. Nifty hand pass across to Dippy Domenico. His kick up towards Matthews on the practice pitch area. Gets out of a tackle. Gets the handball away to Judge. Judge the handball sideways to the running Wallace. Back to Judge. They've set it up beautifully. Open goal 40 metres out. And he's popped it through. Great. Oh, hello. There's a little to do behind play, but it's still a goal to the Hawthorn team. As umpire James, I think, yes, has waved all clear to the goal umpire. The goal stands, of course, a goal to Hawthorn, and they draw the first major blood in this second term. The scoreboard here at the MCG in the 84 grand final. Hawthorn 7-1-43, Essendon 2-7-19, Doug Bigelow.
Set it up beautifully, didn't they? That was it, and it was precision stuff by 4 or 5 members of the team, too numerous to mention. Judge capping off the good effort.
This is Vintage Grandstand.
Hawthorn 44, Essendon 19. The Hawks by 25 points, 6 minutes gone. Foles coming to the members' side, of course. His target there is Brereton, comes up over the top of Van der Haar and takes a great mark.
And Van der Haar doesn't look too well
that left shoulder
at all.
Looks poppy in towards Loveridge, and he's got it. Great kick that by Brereton and a good lead. Matthew says, have a look at the big sticks, Richard Loveridge. Points at the goals. Loveridge goes back. He got away from Williams. And Van der Haar looks as if he's not in a particularly good state at this stage, Douglas.
No,
Did he go into the match unfit? Do you know that?
A possibility.
Loveridge comes in to have a shot at goal for Hawthorn. He's hooked it across towards the behind post. Not a good kick. In fact, it's gone right across the face and out of bounds on the full. Tricky win kicking towards that scoreboard goal. Wallace is calling for it short below us. A bit late was new, and now there'll be a 15-metre penalty. Brereton was the target. In comes little Loveridge, and on his fingertips, perhaps spoilt by Brereton. Loveridge cleverly gets the ball out to Brereton. Brereton shovels it out to Byrne. Byrne from centre half forward for Hawthorn. Kicks the bouncing ball towards full forward. Picked up by Judge. He'll swing it back in towards play to Green. Green's kick beautifully smothered off the boot. Comes back towards Loveridge. Which way does he go? Runs towards the boundary line. Screws it back over his shoulder. Tapped away by the Essendon defence. Matthews, Dippity, Domenico in there. The ball is across the line. He should be thrown in by the boundary umpire. It will be thrown in by the boundary umpire. About 5 metres from the behind post. Right forward pocket for Hawthorn, who lead by 26 points at the 11-minute mark of the second term. Faking for a free kick was a Hawthorn player. Matthews kicks the ball to goal. Bounces through for a goal. Matthews at last kicks a goal. He's second. Grabbed the loose ball. Put it onto his boot quickly, and it bounced almost the length of the goal square and trickled through for the Hawks' 8th goal. They are 8-3-51, leading Essendon 2-7-19, 11 minutes and 20 seconds gone in the second term as Merritt comes back onto the ball and Madden goes to full forward for the Bombers.
The poor old Hawks needed a little bit of luck and running there after those 4 shocking misses.
Certainly did, Douglas. They certainly did.
Vintage Grandstand.
Short kick by Foles into the back pocket, southern stand side. It's marked by Neagle. Neagle will have Foles running past to receive the hand pass. Oh, he fumbled at the crucial moment. A swap comes in, but Foles is able to tidy up. Kicks back towards the wing. Chance for Harvey to gather the loose ball at right on that southern stand wing. Good tackle by Lester Smith. Ball kicked in, and Russo takes the front position, but Watson steals it from him. Well played. His kick is smothered as it goes back in towards centre half forward. Grabbed by the Essendon skipper Terry Danaher. His long hand passes out for Ezard. Robertson is right there. Good play, Ezard. Over the top to Williams. He draws the player. Gets round McCarthy. Draws another player. Open goal. Duckworth down there in the goal square. Bang. Puts it through for Essendon's third and their first of this term. Hawthorn 8-5-53. Essendon 3-9-27. The Hawks lead by 26 points. 20 and a half minutes gone in the second term.
I have to say that was about the first time that Essendon have shown any semblance of teamwork, system, back up, and it all came off. Lucky, but well done, Dons. They're third on the board through Duckworth.
Almost 21 minutes of play in the second quarter. Hawthorn 8-5-53. Almost double Essendon score, 3-9-27. The Hawks by 26 points. The centre bounce, perfect conditions, sun shining, the best day in Melbourne for about 5 weeks. Hawthorn going forward, Brereton in the tap. To Domenico gets the short kick towards Loveridge and a good mark. Boy, has he played a game and a half. He marks the centre half forward. Now they're dropping back. Wallace was one player who dropped back. He's going for the long bomb. Now Loveridge, yes, he could just about put it through. He's just beyond the square line. It's going to drop just a bit short. Jostling going on, off fingers, and it trickles out of bounds, off hands. Right forward pocket, city end, underneath the scoreboard on the members' side pocket. The Hawks deep into attack. A definite scoring chance here. Payton and Merritt in ruck. Matthews there with Judge ready to swoop on any loose ball. Payton in front tries to get control of it. He gets a bit of a push. The ball comes out of his hands and falls at his feet. And there'll be a ball up this time only 13 or 14 metres out from Hawthorn's goal. Hawthorn 8-5, Essendon 3-9. Almost 22 minutes of play in this second term. The ball up, it comes down, off fingers. It'll be luck whichever way it goes. There'll be a ball up. Umpire saws close handy. And the ball falling to the ground, players over the top. So another ball up, only about 15 metres out from Hawthorn's goal. Merritt and Payton again. Merritt wins this time, up the Foles, who tries to fist the ball away. It comes down towards Wallace, gets a hand pass, not all that effective, but he was under pressure. Payton in there, gets the ball out towards Tuck, gets a side bump from Timmy Watson, and he and the ball go out of bounds.
Boundary throw in about 30 metres from the behind post. Beautiful tap down by Merritt. Chance for Neagle. He's pulled off the ball. Essendon player in possession. He knocks it away towards Walsh. Walsh gets a clearing kick back towards the wing. Byrne there. Should mark with support. Oh, they might. Mew comes in. Hotly pressed. Good play by Essendon. Duckworth gets the hand pass away towards Danaher. Good play by Byrne. Comes back towards Duckworth. Tries to hand pass. Hawthorn have a lot of players. Byrne taps the ball forward. Strong play by O'Halloran. He tries to get the ball out. Now it'll be bounced. And that was desperate work by both sides, who fought tenaciously to try and retain possession and get a clean break, as Thompson is on the ground now for the Bombers. Ball has bounced about 15 metres to Hawthorn's side of the grandstand wing as Byrne goes up and smashes it about 20 metres forward. Chance there for Robertson running with the Foles. Loose ball. Lester Smith puts his body in. Pops the hand pass over. It was meant for Robertson, who knocks the ball forward for Tuck. Tuck tries to knock it on towards Wallace. Little bit leery. Merritt, a good hand pass out to Neagle and half back, grandstand side. Neagle's left foot pass to Thompson. He takes it on the half volley. Goes with a left foot kick. A poor one. Bounce. Not good for Harvey. Swab has just been moved on to him. He gets a shove. And Harvey will get a free kick for a push in the back.
A very good Essendon player has been marked, Harvey.
Look at Danaher, all on his own. Where are you? Chris Mew, he gave him 30 metres start, and Danaher takes the mark. Izzard is running past to receive the hand pass. He has to wait for it, but he breaks out of a tackle. Left foot kick the full forward. His kick offline and goes through for a behind.
Well, it would be safe to say that Essendon haven't lacked opportunity to have been a lot closer in this match.
Oh, look at that. Well, that was very intelligent play by Madden. He was about to kick the ball in. McCarthy, loosed Hawthorn players everywhere. Now he gains advantage. He looks for Lester Smith, who's now playing up on the wing. He comes up over the top of Harvey. In comes Mew, and the ball is across the line for a throw-in. Midway between the players' race on the northern stand side and the wing. Hawthorn 8-5-53, Essendon 3-10-28. The Hawks by 25 points, 24 and a half minutes into the second term.
The boundary throw-in, and Madden there with Byrne, but the ball comes to ground. Thompson is there, and I think Izzard as well, and umpire James will call for a bounce. Hawthorn leading by 53 points to 28, so it's 13 scoring shots apiece, 8-5 to 3-10, as Biggs suggested before. Plenty of scoring opportunities for both teams, particularly the trailing team Essendon. From the ball up, it's Madden getting it down, but eventually he fists the ball nicely towards Izzard. His kick, as lucky as you like, goes to Watson on the half-forward line. Now the lead from Duckworth into centre half, but nobody home. He might try and beat the pack. Spiral torpedo by Watson. Danaher going back. Let's see, was it touch? It was, and through from behind by Timmy Watson. The idea was okay, but the pack woke up to what he was doing, and they got down there on the last line very quickly. Scoreboard, Essendon, more scoring shots now, 3-11-29. Hawthorn 8-5-53.
Baker makes perfect position to half-back on the grandstand side and takes a clever mark, and if he wasn't paid the mark, he would have been paid the free kick. He gets up, he's got Hawker, Hawker will be off and running, and Ayres gets him, and he was off. Oh!
Bad umpiring, Mr. James again. We could see that, and we're
Thank
not good
you.
judges.
He took at least 2 steps, Douglas. The kick by Hawker to centre half forward. Off the packet comes. Kick by Izzard right into Green. Green falls over. Izzard tries to get the hand pass out. Umpire James comes in and calls for a bounce at the point of the square in defence. For Hawthorn now, there'll be a Hawthorn free against Izzard. And it's going to Di Domenico for something that happened there. I thought he was legged, but it was a bit late coming. Now, Di Domenico has the free kick for Hawthorn at half-back. It's not a very good kick. It's falling a bit short. Misunderstanding. And Merritt was pulled off the ball. No, he didn't have it, says the umpire. Brereton tackle. Lester Smith drives Hawthorn into attack, and there'll be a 15-metre penalty. Well, that was a little bit ticky touchwood too, Douglas.
Yes, I thought so, but still, I think it was there, and I feel sorry for Lester Smith there playing on because he wasn't aware that the whistle had gone.
He played 2 3/4 minutes of time on in this second. Merritt with the free kick or hand pass. No, he's going for the kick. Up towards half forward, looking for Madden. The ball comes to ground at the feet of Watson, but he couldn't get it. Picked up by Schwab. A nice handball out wide to Russo. And Judge making position now. The pass beyond him up towards the practice pitch area. Weston is there. He traps it. Gets the hurried hand pass away to Hawker. Hawker's clearing kick up towards Izzard. Loveridge late on the scene. He's having a field day today. And he's marked at the end. Got a quick hand pass to Russo. And they said, gotcha. And the ball reefed out of his arms, and it's out of bounds in front of Bay, 17 on the far side wing. Scoreboard at the MCG in the grand final. Hawthorn 8-6-54. Essendon 3-11-29. From the throw-in, it's Watson taking the ball out of the air, but he loses possession. Picked up by Wallace. His hurry kick up towards the pair of nines. Hurd and Di Domenico. Hurd gets it, but swung off the ball by Di Domenico. Picked up by Hawker from half-back. Hawker's kick up towards half-forward, and Danaher takes the mark, but about 2 kicks out from goal. His target will be Madden. He'll have to go for Madden. No, short to Baker, who took his eye off the ball. O'Halloran marked at centre half-back, and it's half-time in the 1984 VFL Grand Final. The scoreboard, Hawthorn 8 goals, 6-54. Lead Essendon 3-11-29.
This is Vintage Grandstand on ABC Radio and ABC Grandstand Digital.
Half-time in the 1984 VFL Grand Final on Vintage Grandstand. We're replaying the ABC call of the match. It's 8-6-54. Essendon trailing Hawthorn 3-11-29, the Bombers. So the margin was 25 points at half-time after Hawthorn had led by 21 at the first break. So things were looking very good for Hawthorn at this stage of the game. One of our listeners says on 0437 774 774, it's great to hear Peter Smooth Booth. Him calling with Tim Lane were a great commentary combination for the then 3LA. Yes, Tim and Smooth did a lot of grand finals together over the years. They were the sound of my childhood, that's for certain. Mark Harvey, a premiership player with the Bombers from 1984. He was only a youngster when he started on the bench and went out on the ground and had a huge impact in the game. And he's joined us on Vintage Grandstand, a former teammate of Adam Ramanauskas.
No, he's not a former teammate of mine.
Well,
no
a very good friend of yours. Yeah, I'll hand it over to you to kick things off, Rama.
Hello, Harves. You holding hands with Donna walking along the beach there?
No, not at the moment, Rama. No, you should say mentor, the guy that taught you everything you know about football.
I will give you credit for that. But look, 84. Obviously, you're only 19. You and Bombers start on the bench. What are your memories of that game? We've listened to the first half now, and you're well behind. But what are your memories?
Well, it's fascinating. Even the week leading up to the game, I can remember myself and Bomber. Bomber was in his second year. I was in the first year when I played 16 games leading into this final series. I was in the grandstand in 1983 when Hawthorn walloped Essendon in that grand final. So they obviously had an edge in what they'd done to us in the preceding year. So this was a rivalry that was evolving. Kevin Sheedy, Alan Jeans. There was not much like between both teams. Kevin used to wind us up a lot about the Hawks. And if you remember that famous, it was Robinson that decked Tim Watson in the 83 grand final. And ever since then, Sheeds had turned, quite sour about that and made sure that if we were ever going to get to another final series, that wasn't going to happen. In fact, at times we were to instigate some of that sort of treatment in the right manner, if you know what I mean. So getting onto this grand final, myself and Bomber started on the bench. I think, from memory, we didn't get on the ground until somewhere late in the first quarter, early in the second quarter. I read it before line bomber went. I think he went on ball and then down back. And I just, I was playing with my idol. So, my idol's Paul Vanderhaar until I met him. And then he drove me down the wrong pathway for a while there. Tim Watson, Simon Madden, Terry Danaher, we're a great team. And when you played under Sheed, you had to be flexible. So it was getting to the point in this game, and I know you're at half-time, that the game looks like it's slipping away from us. But to Kevin's wisdom, he could always motivate you and make you feel emotional that you were still involved in the game, and this is what we had to do to get back into it. And in fact, if you persisted with that, then our preparation, because we trained harder than any other club in those days, that would prevail. So going into the third quarter, we're still sort of edging back a little bit on the scoreboard, but not. Hawthorn was still keeping that margin. And unfortunately, we sort of, weren't kicking straight, I think, and we got to three-quarter time. And I can remember at three-quarter time, I think we were at this stage, I don't want to fast forward the game itself, but we were 26 points down at that stage. So, but as we're walking into that three-quarter time huddle, Kevin had made us realise he's pointing to the Hawthorn huddle that a lot of their players were getting massaged and they looked like they're off their feet, socks down, all that sort of stuff. So the psychology war started, and he started to make us believe that they were spent. And that's where he went to his match-up board, and he made about 3 or 4 changes with our defenders and forwards, and they flipped roles, and then the momentum began in that last quarter. So I'm not sure where we're at with this, but that's my recollection. I was totally nervous before the game, being my first year, but we had some experience within the final series, and we had tough players that would look after you when you were out there, so it made things a lot easier.
So, Harves, you always considered yourself a tactical genius as a coach, and that was self-proclaimed, obviously. But would have you had the courage as a coach in a grand final to make those moves at three-quarter time?
Well, I think Kevin had come to the conclusion that he had to. He always did it throughout the course of a home and away series anyhow. It was one of his tricks. He never let the opposition know or never made them feel comfortable about where players were playing. And that's how it was in those years, in the early 80s. It wasn't about system. It was more about tactically how you could get mismatches. And that's what Kevin was always looking for, all the unsuspecting player that could sort of rally and change the game, or kick a goal when you least expect it, as an example. So we were drilled for it. Quite often in training we were put in unfamiliar positions, so it wasn't new to us, and he knew that players could adapt quite quickly.
Mark Harvey's with us on Vintage Grandstand. So what was the dynamic to making sure that worked? Because as you touched on, Sheed made a couple of changes early, and sort of starting Simon Madden at full forward maybe didn't pay off. But as you've touched on there, the group always had the confidence that he'd make the right call when it mattered most.
Yeah, like sort of Duckworth and these sort of guys, started in the back line and then they could go forward and kick goals. I think Leon Baker got pushed out of the midfield and went forward himself. And he kicked a couple of goals in that last quarter there. We started to get the ball out of the middle. And this is where great players can grab hold of the game. It's where Tim Watson really started to set the scene and really started to get involved heavily in the game. And then Terry Danaher and all those bugs, Roger Merritt, etc., Paul Vanderhaar. So we had a brilliant forward line that could kick goals quickly. And that was our main strength, to be honest.
Hey, Harves, your memories, you were obviously a very young player at this stage, but Sheeds, back in those days, I've only ever known him as the great salesman and the PR genius and the quirky, sometimes crazy coach. Was he a little bit more subdued back then, or was he still just as crazy?
No, he was in his early years of coaching, he was irate, he was aggressive. He was always keeping an eye on his players, very disciplined with preparation, as I mentioned, how Harvey trained, punctuality, knowing about the opposition. That was one of his biggest strengths that he actually had, that we had to know everything about the opposition. So we get a 20-page document leading into the game of the opposition that we would have to know everything about these players that would actually help us win the game. So those were the sort of things that he did. And he got personal. He would sort of really, he sort of never really took to Lee Matthews, and that big game, that was ongoing into 1990, and when Lee started coaching, and then finished up in, the Lions and all that sort of stuff. He really turned on players to make sure that they didn't have an influence on the game, like Dermot, for instance, like Dipper, and it kept going. He even had to go Chris Langford because he went to a private school, all this sort of stuff. It's quite fascinating, actually, just the way he thought about the opposition and how you could pull them apart.
I'm interested, Harves, you talk about your mentor in Vander. Did he take you under his wing after the game with the celebrations?
Went for 3 weeks after the game. And, mate, he took me places I never heard of in Melbourne, by the way. And then we finished up, I think, in America, Viva Las Vegas, remember, where you guys had finished up going later on in your career. So, New York, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, look, he was our coach off the field.
Just going back, obviously you were the youngest in the team, and you were very important to me when I first came to Essendon and calming myself down when I was playing in those early finals. What do you think the keys are for young players in finals, Harves?
Firstly, have a coach that believes in what you're doing makes a lot of difference. And getting to know him early on in your career and what makes him tick, and him knowing about you and what sort of temperament you've got or you need to become to be able to handle the pressure and anxiety of finals. So he would teach us about just being involved in the game. It wasn't about kicks and handballs, just about how you can get involved in the game and how you can be selfless in the team winning. So don't worry about necessarily the statistics. Just be involved in the game and do it this way. That makes an enormous amount of difference to a player, because you're not worried about whether you've touched the ball necessarily. It's just more about how the team's going. Are you fulfilling that role, and do you play the right way? Meaning Kevin's way. And Kevin's way was you never got out of the road. You had to be involved. And in fact, yes, and if you had time and space, and if you could catch the opposition unaware, do so, he used to say, do so. That was some of his sort of psychic. And then on top of that, as I mentioned, if you've got players, that, and these players were in their prime, I mentioned Roger Merritt, Merv Nagel and all these sort of guys, Billy, Steve Carey, all these blokes were important because physically they would lead the way, and then if anyone got annoyed you, then they'd be certainly looking after you. And I guess the belief of what we've done throughout the course of the year, as I said, I mentioned we hit the scoreboard quickly. We had a dominant forward line, and that gave us belief no matter what, that was always going to be in the back of our minds to give us confidence to change momentum. But as a young kid, I used to just eradicate it. I just used to not play with any fear and didn't think about it too much. That was how I grew up playing footy, and I think it made me a lot more stable in those sort of situations, and therefore I didn't have to get unnerved or worry about a grand final as such.
Mark Harvey's with us on Vintage Grandstand. We asked Simon Madden what was better, 84-85. From on-field point of view, 85 was pretty good for you. Recollections of that grand final?
Once again, the team had gone to another level in 85. I remember we played in March in those games. In those years, used to play an all-Australian team from the opposition, so the best players for the rest of the competition would play the grand finals from the previous year. I remember in March it was at Waverley, and we beat the All-Star team, and that sort of said, well, geez, how good is this team? And then we went on to sort of do what we did in 85, and we were just so dominant, and we'd improved even more. And we benefited from the grand final. There was no hangover, and away we went. And look at the scoreboard in the 85 grand final. It was clearly, that's how good we were. But it was on the back of what we did in 84. There's no question 84, because of the pressure of the situation, losing to Hawthorn in 83, coming from behind. Essendon hadn't won a grand final since 1965. There was a lot hanging off it, and the way that we did it to come from behind was just sensational.
And like Ramo, you had success as a young player, and you've then moved into coaching with Fremantle and Essendon to try and achieve that success in a coaching capacity. How hard is it to try and replicate that culture? I guess Essendon fans are desperately trying to find it now of that team in which you had in the 80s.
Well, it's interesting. It's obviously different era in the game's professional now. But what I would say is that, and we've got a lot of young coaches coming into the competition now, and they don't have long careers. What I would say is you've always got to have a connection with your players. You've got to be able to play for your coach. And therefore your coach has got to give something back and not just be about a system or about strategy or about defence. It's more than that. And in the modern world of football, when everyone gets attacked with the pressure of winning and losing, it's so important for young coaches to have a strong relationship and bond with their players. And I think that that's something that has changed too much for the worst in the last couple of years of what I've seen in coaching, because coaches get caught up into the pressure and the nature of winning, and then it can be only short-term. Yeah. So that's some of the things that I've seen just in the coaching area over the last couple of years.
Great insight, Mark, and thanks for your reflections on what was a famous day for the Essendon Football Club, the first flag under Kevin Sheedy, and the start of something really special for the club, of which you were a key part.
By the way, have you ever seen the interview with myself and Paul Salmon after the game?
Can I give the photo of that? We can put it up on our website. Harvey?
You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. But all I'll say is, Fish is in worse condition than me, and he didn't even play the game now.
Good fun, Harves. Thanks for your time.
Good on you, boys.
Mark Harvey with us on Vintage Grandstand. Great to have you with us wherever you're listening around the country.
He's spot on about that last question you asked Clenchy about coaching. That was great to hear, that connection between players and playing for your coach. It was brilliant. But it's funny, he talks about the power of that forward line for Essendon. Yeah. 34 shots at goal in the prelim, 35 shots at goal in the grand final, and then they get better in 85. You asked before about modern goal kicking. 9+ goals, 2008 to 2020, only 16 times in 13 seasons. And 11 of those came from Buddy, Jack Rewalt and Josh Kennedy. Thanks to Josh Kay, who is the stats guru for that little bit of information. But back then, you just had players left, right and centre kicking bags of goal. Not so much anymore.
Yeah, it was literally as kids you want to know how many Dunstall kick, how many Ablett kick, how many Lockett kick today, how many Kernahan kick today. There were just a plethora of gun forwards who would kick bags on a weekly basis.
Sav Rocker,
absolutely.
The names through the late 80s, 90s of
and remember when Adrian McAdam came on?
Yes.
Alan Jakovic and they
Darren Bennett.
Richard Osborne, how many goals he kicked? There's just so many guys for every team that could kick goals.
0437 774 774 is the number if you want to get in touch with us. Wow, we're listening to a call of a footy match from 1984. The ABC must have so many historic recordings in the archives. You should start digitising the best of them. Analogue tape doesn't last forever. Yep, that's absolutely happening in archives at the moment. We've done a number of these vintage grandstands where we replay some of the game, the original ABC commentary, and also get on the key players. So we've done 1970, we've done 1990, we've done 1982, the draw of 1977 as well. We've done 1971, spoken to all the key players. So if you go onto the ABC Grandstand radio website, and go on to the Best of Grandstand page, the podcast page, you'll find all the vintage grandstands that we've done there. So they're available to you online, or you can just Google Vintage Grandstand and you should be able to find them.
I found the YouTube video that Harves was talking about. Very blonde, young Mark Harvey and a very young Paul Salmon as well. Harves may be ahead of his time with the medal around his neck and a denim jacket.
I think there might be more to this, Ramo. The amount of giggling that's going on here.
There's obviously no audio because we're on air, but I'd imagine the audio shows they've had a couple of drinks to celebrate and not all that succinct in their answers. Another great SMS, Al, 0437 774 774. Really enjoying the call. Love hearing Doug Bigelow's those comments. He was a customer at the bank where I worked, and he was one of the nicest people you could ever meet. A lovely man. Your replay brings back a lot of great memories, Peter and Elston. We love listening back to Doug, very succinct with his thoughts, and certainly doesn't mince his words either.
No, he keeps the commentators honest as well.
I'm taking notes for my role when I'm working with you two from now on. I might just start chipping in with, no, it's that player. Al.
Correct. If we can handle Sellers, I think we'll handle Nearly. Robin Yarraville says, I was there with my nearly 2-year-old son. We were 23 points down at three-quarter time, but a superb goal in the first few seconds of the last quarter by Leon Baker was the spark for a great win. And Grant Nicol in North Ringwood, I was there in 84, standing on steel beer cans. One of the most disappointing games ever. I've always felt this was one we should have won, said Grant. So Grant's clearly a Hawthorn supporter. So at half-time, Essendon trailed Hawthorn 8-6-54 to 3-11-29. Let's pick up the action now. The original ABC radio call in the third term.
8 minutes gone, third term in the grand final. Hawthorn 55 lead, Essendon 31, a 24-point lead to the Hawks. That's 4 goals. Pushed away. Chance for Green as he scoops the ball out towards Wallace, but didn't quite get there. Tackled by Thompson, but his hand pass is intercepted by Russo. Russo is off and running. Goes for a long kick from the point of the square line. Matthews in front of Clark. Couldn't hold the mark. Who's there? Foles. He tries to knock the ball away, but the skips judge the opportunity. Oh, he tries to finesse and kick the ball off the ground. He's still going. He's outnumbered about 3-1, but he gets a nice bounce. Hand passes to himself, but can't quite do it, and it's out of bounds.
Kick. It'll be a free kick to Hawthorn.
Yes, trip.
Right beneath Bay 14. It's a long, long way out from goal. Russo makes space. No, he's being tagged by Watson. Judge goes for the pass. Matthews, the leader. Dippy Domenico. Over the packet comes. Matthews grabs it. Left foot snap at an open goal.
Yes!
Oh, and he's put it through. And that was brilliant football by the skipper. He spun out of the pack, got his left boot to it, and as the big fellow Weston went back, he couldn't touch it. Matthews kicks his third. The first goal of the third term at the 9-minute mark, and quite a handy one for Hawthorn.
The best goal I have seen this year for Matthews. Biggs?
Yes, absolutely superb. There's no doubt about him. Well, I've been full of rap for him for years, and today, no exception. He's just absolutely amazing, that little guy.
Hawthorn lead by 30 points. 9.5 minutes in the third term in the 84 grand final from the centre bounce. And it's Williams getting the Bombers going forward. Duckworth clean bowl. The ball went straight past him. Picked up by Ayres, I think, from half-back. Across towards the wing on the member side. Hawke in front of Dippy Domenico. And Hawker wins out with superior speed. Through the crest, up towards half-forward he goes, looking for Danaher. Good punch away in defence from behind by Chris Mew. And the ball out of bounds in front of the smoker stand. Right half-forward flank with Essendon kicking to the main scoreboard end here at the MCG. It's McCarthy and, yes, Bradbury back on, and Thompson's come off. From the throw-in it goes up to Danaher. He fires it in towards Harvey. Courageous mark.
Did you see him slip back? The kid did it beautifully. He snuck back there. Swab went back, or Russo went back after him, but he anticipated that very well, Harvey, who has been, I think, their best player.
Plenty of guts. He's at centre half forward, about 40 metres out, dead in front. And he fires.
And
it's a shocker. He's put it out of bounds on the full. As Dippy Domenico has, I think, got a corky or something, and he's gone off the ground, and Rodney Eade has come on for Hawthorn.
And the ball is relayed back towards the wing on the southern stand side. Hawthorn have the numbers. Robertson draws the player, slips the hand pass to Russo. Russo spears the pass in towards Matthews. The ball, loose ball taken by Foles. Out to Williams with the hand pass. Which way does he go? Long. Out towards Neagle. Neagle will give it back towards Williams. Good running by the little guy. Short pass in towards Watson, and he takes the mark just a millimetre or two off the turf. Right beneath Bay 16. A couple of millimetres in from the boundary line. His kick is back towards his skipper, Terry Danaher, who takes the mark on the crest. Plays on. He fired towards Bradbury at half forward. Green there to spoil. Bradbury props and cops. Hawthorn have support there with Schwab. He takes the ball cleverly. Pops the pass back towards Eade, just on the ground. Eade takes the mark. What's he going to do? This way, that way. Gives himself a little bit of room and finds Wallace. Clever play. Wallace with a long kick down towards Matthews and Clark. He leads to the pocket. Matthews. The ball bounces. It's knocked over by Clark. In comes Foles. Robertson's there to worry him. And the ball is forced across the line and out of bounds for a throw-in. 25 metres from the behind post. Right forward pocket for Hawthorn. They're going to the Richmond in this third term, and they lead by 30 points at the 11.5 minute mark.
Hawks deep into attack. A chance for Byrne, but knocked down by Walsh. But it goes to Clark. He knocks the ball sideways, and Robertson is there, and the boundary line close again. And it's out of bounds. Right forward pocket, about 25 or 30 metres around from Hawthorn's goal. They lead by 30 points in the grand final, 9-7-61. Essendon 3-13-31. The boundary throw in again. Byrne gets it down, taken by Neagle, a clearing kick up towards the centre. Williams comes in and takes the mark on his chest between centre and centre half back, with Wallace giving away a 15-metre penalty. No, yes, he doesn't want it. He's not going to get it because Duckworth leads and takes the mark, but he dropped it. Russo is there. Duckworth still on all fours, gets a push in the back. No free kick. The ball knocked out towards Watson. Watson there gets away from Lester Smith just. Runs across the half-back line. Gets a long hand pass into half-back to Weston. Weston short pass finds Baker at half-forward. A long way out, about 2.5 kicks out from goal. The kick by Baker up towards Merritt. Arches his body nicely. Gets a push in the back. Well, he may have been held. He's about 45 to 50 metres out. He's just on the edge of the practice pitch area. Roger Merritt. I thought he arched his back, but it may have given a false sense of opinion to the umpire. A long way away from us. A picture of concentration, a vital one, with Hawthorn leading by 5 goals in the grand final. It's not a good one. It's hit the post. Well, he kept it too low. Off the boot, I called it not a good one. Directionally, it was okay for a while, but he kicked it far too low and hit the post behind. Scoreboard at MCG, Essendon 3-14. Bigs, they're kicking themselves out of it. 3-14-32. Hawthorn 9-7-61.
Ayres will kick the ball in for Hawthorn. He has the advantage of 15 metres, so he goes long. Lester Smith, the target, knocks the ball away. Chance for Eade, the Hawthorn interchange player. That short step to run. The left foot kick towards half forward. Hawker again doing well on Judge. Gathers just inside the boundary line. Hand passes to Donnell. Not a very good one. He's under pressure. He breaks out of a tackle. Well played, Donnell. His high kick is over the wing towards half forward. Fisted away by Mew once more. Loveridge goes up and backs his judgment. Takes the ball away. And he kicks it straight back to three Essendon players. Brereton down and hurt. Limping off. Curran will come on as Neagle receives a hand pass. Kicks long in towards half forward. And Ayres takes the magnificent mark. Controlling the air as David Mackay says. He spears it out wide, looking for Wallace, running with the flight of the ball. He's just in front of Williams, but he fumbles at the crucial moment. Williams to tidy up. Wallace takes it off him. He gets ridden into the ground. Taken away for Essendon by Bradbury. His long kick is out to the practice wicket area. The ball bounces. Duckworth has it in front of him, picks it up, gets away from Lester Smith. Here's Baker on his own, the goal square. And he takes the mark. For 4.
Biggs, would you turn your mic on, please? Leave it on.
A 15-metre penalty if you dink him, James, and he is fair dinkum.
And Brereton off and Curran on. And Dippy Domenico just talking to Curran before he went onto the ground with a lot of encouragement. Now, where's Baker? He's only about 2 metres out from goal. Main scoreboard end. And he should pop it through. Will make it 61-38. He's popped it through okay. Scoreboard here at the MCG. Hawthorn 9-7-61. Essendon 4-14-38. And that margin 23 points halfway through the third term, 15 minutes in.
This is Vintage Grandstand.
A ball up in front of the smoker stand, and Danaher goes up, comes down towards Eade, gets the tap away, eventually picked up by Wallace. Wallace up towards the crest on the member side, picked up by Hawker. Through the crest he goes, centres it in towards Van der Haar. He's juggled it, third grab, and he's got it. And Danaher calling for it. That's going to be his target, or Billy Duckworth. Duckworth flies and takes the mark, and the Bombers still a chance in this grand final yet. He's marked only 25 metres out on the angle. Wide of half forward, I think Brereton's coming back on the ground for Hawthorn. This will make it 61 to 44. He's popped it through, and the Bombers still a chance in the 84 grand final. That's Duckworth's second goal after coming from defence. The scoreboard at the 19-minute mark in the third term. Payton off. Brereton, he may have just pinched a nerve, is back on again. Scoreboard, Hawthorn 9-7-61, Essendon 5-14-44, only 17 points in it, and the Bombers had 19 scoring shots to 15.
Well, they haven't lost their poise. I thought that was very cool play then by Hawker, who got it to Van der Haar, who saw Duckworth, and if it hadn't been a mark to Duckworth, it perhaps would have been a free kick to him.
OK, Nick, a quick report on Hawthorn's injuries. OK, missed the boat, Graham.
Back in the centre with Glenn James. 23 points it was. It's now 17 at the 19.5-minute mark of the third term. Hawthorn 9-7-61. Essendon 5-14-44. Byrne back on the ball for Hawthorn. Tries to grab it himself. Kicked off the ground. Attempt by Hurd. Kicked off the ground by Mew. Gathered on the bounce by Judge. Spins the hand pass out to Lester Smith, who runs towards the point of the square. His long kick is going to the goal square. Matthews is shepherding. Couldn't hold the mark, and it's still in play as it's picked up by Curran. He tries to get it back, and good play by Clark. Pushes it through for a Hawthorn behind. Hawthorn 9-8-62. Essendon 5-14-44. The Hawks by 18 points. Foles goes for a short kick into the back pocket. It's marked there by Hawker, who's playing a great game. He spears it out to half back. 15-metre penalty as Bradbury, I think it is, over there takes the mark and is pulled down by Robertson after he took the mark. Bradbury gets the advantage of the 15 metres. And another one. So that's a 30-metre penalty. Now he's off and running, going round the southern stand wing, up towards Danaher at half forward. Beautiful fist away by Mew, out to Green. Green's kick is cleverly intercepted by Bradbury. It went about 5 metres. Bradbury in towards half forward. Duckworth takes the mark. Duckworth doing very well, giving the Bombers a big lift. Van der Haar the target. He's got the big chance. It's pushed away though by the Hawthorn defence. Swamp knocks the ball out. Chance, Wallace puts his body in beautifully. Ball still running free at centre half forward for the Bombers, about 45 metres out from their goal, and James will bounce.
Tell you what, Graham, since Van der Haar came back on, injury or no injury, whatever, he is really slipping himself.
Hawthorn lead by 18 points, 21 minutes gone in the third term. The next goal could be so vital in this game. Smashed away by McCarthy, smashed away again by Eade, out towards the edge of the square. Byrne and Merritt there. Merritt gets a shove. Play on's a corner. It's grabbed by Neagle. He throws it away. Back towards Big Merritt. Heath scoops it out towards Donnell. Donnell has a hurried high kick. It's floating in towards the forward pocket. Plenty of Hawthorn defenders. It's pushed out towards Eade. Eade knocks the ball forward. Gets into a bit of trouble, but follows up well. They're all over him, and he's content to let the ball run across the line. Desperate play by Eade, pushing the ball forward. Hawthorn 9-8-62. Essendon 5-14-44. The Hawks by 18 points. 21 3/4 minutes gone in the third term.
From the boundary thrown in front of the smoker stand, the Bombers into attack. They're playing a little bit better at the moment. Knocked down to Green. Green's clearing kick out on the full. And the free kick going to the Bombers. And the tide is turning just fractionally here at the MCG. In the last 8 or 10 minutes, it's going to be Darren Williams of Essendon with the free kick. Almost on the wing, between wing and half forward, directly below us. He squares it towards half forward now. Van der Haar got a bit of a push, although he may have faked it. Comes down in front of the pack to Hurd, grabbed. A chance here for Baker. Baker can't, no, it's Essard, can't get rid of it. Picked up by Neagle. Oh, he comes in, and an elbow, and he's down, but I don't think he's out.
No,
but I thought there was a bit of evil intent there. Now, come on, Biggs, give us your opinion. Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, boundary throw in, the ball out of bounds anyway. No free kick given, punched away. Hurd leading in the race for the ball, and it's out of bounds.
He was met rather heavily.
Hip and shoulder.
And not as legitimately as I would have thought.
75 metres away from Essendon's goal. 23 minutes almost of play in this third term. It's been a ripper. And Mew punches the ball away. Picked up by Donnell. Puts his head down. Bottom up. Burrows through, but his kick is smothered. Players over the top. Hurd there gets the handball out. Neagle's up and running. Harvey there. Harvey caught. Caught. The ball comes short. Rebounds out to Wallace. Handball on to Judge. Judge runs through the centre up towards the Richmond end. And Duckworth chasing his head of bounce. A long kick by Judge behind the pack. And it's a Hawthorn mark. Brereton or Curran. Right in front. Only 11 or 12 metres out from goal. And that was the one the Hawks needed, because things were looking just a little ominous for Hawthorn. Those couple of injuries, rearrangement here and there on the wing half-forward line, upset them just for about 7 or 8 minutes. Now Brereton, who came off, I think with a pinched nerve in the knee, back on, a goal-scoring chance, dead in front, and has popped it through. That's his second goal. 23 3/4 minutes in the third term, the grand final. Essendon 5-14-44. They trailed by 24 points, and all that good work by Essendon really has not paid dividends when you look at the scoreboard right here and now. Hawthorn 10-8-68. Hawthorn 5-14-44. O'Halloran picks it up, gets the handball away to Russo. Russo slips on the practice pitch area and kicks into the man on his mark, and he comes back and tries to redeem himself. He does the best possible job, and he's scooped the ball away. And the free kick from the tackling Van der Haar. Van der Haar now deep on the half-forward line. Baker leads, and he's in front of Eade and takes the mark on the practice pitch area. It's 3/4 time. He's about 65 metres out from goal. On the far side, kicking to the main scoreboard end, the torpedo punter's going to drop about 11 metres short as Bradbury fists the ball in front of the pack. And Hawthorn turn at the three-quarter way mark, leading by 23 points.
So 10-8-68 to 5-15-45, the three-quarter time margin in the 1984 VFL Grand Final. This is Vintage Grandstand. We heard Mark Harvey talking about a famous interview he did after the Grand Final a little earlier. We couldn't resist. We had to play it too. Here he is with Stephen Phillips and Paul Salmon.
With me, I've got two boys. They've both got P-plates on their car. Tonight they stand for premierships. Mark Harvey and Paul Salmon. Mark played and Paul put down the great foundation for the club early in the season. What about the big fella next year?
Well, you know, he was part of it. He feels out of it at the moment, but, you know, he's part of it. You just feel...
Paul, must have been very, very heart-rending to watch all the boys get the medals, knowing how much you put in, the 63 goals in the 13 games, and knowing that you'd have to spend half the season on the sidelines.
It is very hard, but, you know, you don't feel a real part of it, so you're not played, but...
Well said, boys. Well said. Gary Ayres and Kevin Sheedy will be far more coherent. They're going to join us after the news on Vintage Grandstand, and we'll play the last quarter of the 1984 VFL Grand Final. Stick around.
ABC News with Satyam Weinstein. The US president says he's doing well after being hospitalized with COVID-19. In a 4-minute video tweeted from hospital, Donald Trump says he looks forward to beating coronavirus. There have been conflicting reports about the president's condition since he was admitted to Walter Reed Medical Center. Mr. Trump says his doctors have been doing an incredible job and he's in awe of modern medicine.
If you look at the therapeutics, which I'm taking right now, some of them, and others are coming out soon that are looking like, frankly, they're miracles. If you want to know the truth, they're miracles. People criticize me when I say that, but we have things happening that look like they're miracles coming down from God.
Victoria's Premier Daniel Andrews is pleading with Victorians not to jeopardise the downward trend of new coronavirus cases with just 2 weeks before restrictions are expected to be eased. Victoria's recorded 12 new infections and 1 more death linked to aged care. There are 241 active cases in the state, including 20 cases linked to the growing outbreak at Chadstone Shopping Centre in Melbourne's southeast. Mr Andrews says metropolitan Melbourne's 14-day average has fallen to 11.9 and in regional Victoria, it's 0.2.
Let's not any of us do anything to jeopardise where we find ourselves. It's delicately poised, but we are there, ready. If we continue these numbers, continue this trend, we are ready to take that step, all things being equal, in just a couple of weeks' time.
New South Wales has recorded no new locally transmitted cases of COVID-19 for the 9th day in a row. James Carmody reports.
Testing for COVID-19 in New South Wales has found no evidence that the virus is being spread in the community. The last positive case from community transmission was picked up 9 days ago on September 25th. 2 cases were detected in the latest 24-hour reporting period, but they were both people who had recently returned from overseas and are undergoing mandatory isolation in a quarantine hotel. 51 people still have active infections. Authorities say almost 8,500 tests were carried out in the last reporting period, and they're urging people to come forward for even the slightest symptoms.
The WA Health Department has reported no new cases of COVID-19 in that state. However, authorities are awaiting test results after testing a crew member on board the Kota Legit, a cargo ship currently docked at Fremantle Port, who reported feeling unwell while the ship was at sea. The other crew members have reportedly not shown any symptoms. The crew will remain on board with any necessary changes being made once the test result is released. A gas company bringing interstate workers into the NT who are exempt from quarantine says it won't be publicly releasing its COVID-19 management plan. Jimena is working on a gas pipeline near Tennant Creek, and the NT government has granted it an exemption to bring in 18 interstate employees from Victoria and New South Wales without having to quarantine. The company says its interstate workers are being kept isolated from the wider community when not at the worksite. The CEO of the Aboriginal Medical Service Alliance NT, John Patterson, says health services are demanding the release of the company's safety plans.
You know, workers coming from a hotspot area in Victoria puts huge risk on the Tennant Creek community. So we again request that those workers undertake 14-day quarantining and the appropriate safety measures put in place. Our members also want to see the COVID plan that's developed for the workers.
The federal government has announced plans to pay half the wages of apprentices and trainees to help fund an estimated 100,000 new jobs. Anna Henderson reports from Parliament House.
The pandemic has hit the market for entry-level jobs hard, and the Treasurer Josh Frydenberg says the $1.2 billion proposal will be open to businesses across the country in all industries.
People who are working as bakers, hairdressers, those who are sparkies, those who are plumbers.
Shadow Treasurer Jim Chalmers says Labor is in favour of the proposal, but is worried the government has a track record of getting headlines but failing to follow through.
We can't afford a lost generation sacrificed to this recession.
The scheme is designed to provide more jobs for young people and for people out of work wanting to retrain.
And archaeologists have unearthed dozens of ancient coffins in a vast necropolis south of Cairo. At least 59 sealed sarcophagi, most containing mummies, were found in 3 wells in Saqqara. The coffins were buried more than 2,600 years ago. You're now up to date with the very latest from ABC News.
The ABC Grandstand website is live.
A one-stop shop for all your sporting needs from across the country.
Right is right. Every Tiger runs to it.
NRL, AFL, AFLW,
rugby, cricket, netball,
golf, NBL, tennis, all your sporting codes.
Goes himself and scores.
In-depth analysis, interviews and coverage of your favourite sports from players, coaches and experts.
Pulled in the air, caught it short mid-wicket.
Flip in play. Bowl.
Go to abc.net.au/grandstand.
Oh.
He can go for the grand final record of 9 goals.
Bartlett the opportunity, got a chance to outplay Magro. He does with speed and skill. He's run away from him.
And there's a fight on behind Slade.
Roswell's
in it. He's only been on the ground about a minute.
Adelaide wins the 97 flag. It's first ever. Malcolm Blight at his 4th attempt.
On ABC Radio and ABC Grandstand Digital, this is Vintage Grandstand.
Hope you're having a terrific Sunday wherever you are around the country. This is Vintage Grandstand, 1984 vintage for you today. It's the grand final between Hawthorn and Essendon. We've been replaying the match call, the ABC call from the 1984 grand final, and we've got to three-quarter time, and from here things really start to change. At three-quarter time it was Hawthorn 10-8-68, leading Essendon 5-15-45. Just before we get to Hawthorn champion Gary Ayres, a consummate big game player, and Kevin Sheedy's going to join us later on Vintage Grandstand as well. A bit of sad news out of the Saints today. They've confirmed it is season over for Paddy Ryder, unfortunately due to a hamstring tendon injury that may require surgery. So we saw the scenes yesterday of him in tears on the bench and sustained that injury cruelly in his first finals victory. He'd played in finals with Essendon and Port Adelaide, but had never played in a winning final with a minute to go in the game.
He was probably the best player on the ground.
Oh, he was.
Last night.
He held them together in that last quarter.
Yeah.
It was exactly what they recruited him for, to play predominantly ruck, push forward, kick a couple of goals.
Well, only Robbie Flower had played in more games to achieve his first finals win than Paddy Ryder, and he got it, and a minute, 2 minutes to go, he does that. And what a role he played, but he's got them to the second week at least. He doesn't get to play in it, but yeah.
Well, over to you, Rowan Marshall now.
Yeah.
I thought Marshall was pretty good also yesterday. They did a number on Tim English, so now Marshall's going to have to obviously go it alone. It's a big task for him.
Alistair Nicholson, Matt Clinch, Adam Ramanauskas and Cameron Ling with you for Vintage Grandstand. And lots of your contributions coming in on 0437 774 774. What about Paul Weston's last quarter up forward, says one of our listeners. We'll hear that very shortly. Peter Henry from North Ringwoods says he was there with his best friend Rod. Still my best friend, a mad Magpies fan, sitting in the top deck, front row of the Olympic stand. Was that nervous? Rod convinced me not to leave at three-quarter time, which proved to be a gem of a decision. Last quarter was one of the most exhilarating times. Tough, hard games. Sheedy was a brilliant coach, many great players on both sides. Can remember the best game as though it was yesterday. Rod, my friend, later a couple of years ago, gave me a gift, a memento of a miniature MCG scoreboard as it was at the end of the game. Great memories, says Peter.
And this is a lovely one from Helen in Essendon. Best day ever, also famously known for our pavlova at half-time, which we thought was going to be the highlight of the day. Then the Bombers came out and gave us one of the best experiences we have shared together. My mum, Betty, is now 87 years and listening in today in hospital recovering from a hip operation. So she would love it if you could give her a shout-out. So there you go, Helen. Great to have your company and glad to hear you're enjoying it. And I'm sure the pavlova was delicious.
Betty, this is for you, this last quarter coming up, so enjoy every second of it. This man probably didn't enjoy every second of it, but he's always great with his time for us on Grandstand AFL. I speak of Gary Ayres, who was such a big game player and a multiple premiership winner at the Hawks. He joins us on Vintage Grandstand. G'day, Ayresy.
Yeah, afternoon all. Maybe that's what we did at three-quarter time, didn't have the pavlova.
You played superbly in this grand final. It shouldn't be overlooked, but in this last quarter that we're about to hear, there was plenty of ball coming your way.
Yes, I remember going to the doctor and the physio after the game, and one was because I reckon I had stress straight after the loss, and of course the other thing for the physio was trying to put my neck back into place because I remember watching so many goals go over my head. So, there was a fair bit of heat coming on, if I remember rightly. And, the way they played in that last quarter, the Bombers, they were pretty good. And, we probably didn't do enough early. So not one of my more memorable moments, I can tell you that, boys.
Hey, Ezzy, back in those days, obviously a long time ago now, was it simply that stuff just didn't happen where a coach would essentially flip the magnets and just try something? Was it real when they came out and lined up against you? Was it sort of like, what's going on here? What's Sheedy done here? Why is Paul Weston now lining up at full forward?
Yeah, well, we knew, and you'd know, Rammer, as good as anyone, that Sheeds did have a penchant for throwing things around and, of course, seeing what worked and what didn't work. And, of course, that's what made him a great coach. I would have thought he was not frightened to try a lot of things over the journey. And some worked and obviously some wouldn't, as I found later on as a coach myself. But they probably... And again, it is a little bit hazy, as you could well imagine. I remember more about the first three quarters than I do the last quarter, that's for sure. But I would have thought it was a case of, as you said, trying something, being almost 4 goals down at three-quarter time. I sort of vaguely remember the huddle at three-quarter time wasn't probably as in sync as it maybe should have been. There were maybe guys that were probably thinking, oh, this is a good opportunity for back-to-back after winning 83. And then there were some other boys, I'm sure, who would have been thinking, oh, this could be my first premiership. And so maybe, I remember Jeansy sort of just, a little bit on edge, which, again, most coaches are. But, no, I didn't think too much at the time. I just thought, well, here we go. There's certainly going to be an opportunity. We've got to keep doing what we've been doing, but I don't reckon we were good enough to put them away when we probably should have in those previous three quarters. And quite often, as we found out, you try these things, and of course, what a wonderful quarter from a Bombers' point of view for it to all come off. And we were pretty ordinary, to be honest.
Ezzy, the grand finals are the greatest test for any player, and you, I know, in a disappointing day, in the best players for the Hawks, and then famously 2 Norm Smith medals to come after this one. What was your approach to a grand final? Why were you able to deliver in such big games so often?
Oh, thanks, Lingy. It's nice to be, I guess, remembered as how good you were on those days, mate. So appreciate that, pal. And my attitude was I hated losing, and I was very much of the belief that I guess potentially I could do something that maybe was inspiring my teammates, and if they then were able to see that and I guess come along on that ride of doing something over a period of a couple of hours, and if we could get our teammates to play somewhere near the best, well, you never know what could happen. And I guess one of the main driving forces for me in the latter part of the 80s was, losing 84 and 85. And when we approached 86, I know we're sort of getting off the track there a little bit, but going into 86, I couldn't lose 3 in a row as being a member of the great Hawthorn teams. And I reckon that was probably indicative of a lot of the other boys too. So going in with that, not wanting to lose, trying to inspire my teammates by doing something. And, of course, let's be honest, playing in the Premiership, as you boys know, is the best drug you can get of adrenaline and happiness and, self-sacrifice and just everything that all comes together on that great day, as we know. And it certainly gets even me excited even now. And watching the finals over the last couple of days, it certainly is why we play our great game.
Gary Ayres has joined us on Vintage Grandstand. Ayresy, it's Matt Clinch. Hawthorn was so synonymous in grand finals from 83 to 89. So as you touched on there, you experienced the highs of winning, but then the disappointments of losing. When you reflect upon that journey, does the wins cancel out the losses, or do the losses still sting when you think back about that years?
Yeah, no, they still sting, that. Maybe I'm a sore loser, but the one that probably got away was 84 when we probably think about it, and we were extremely lucky about getting to an opportunity of consistently playing in grand finals 8 out of 9 years. And the guys that I played with, Dermot, Ducky, Chris Langford, John Kennedy Jr., Schwabby, Peter Nicely, Matthews, it just goes on and on and on. And, we were absolutely blessed, I guess, to be born at a time and then go through that era. But, that one in 84 certainly hurt a lot. And full credit to Essendon. They really steamrolled us, and, we just couldn't answer their momentum. And, it's a pretty lonely place on grand final day when you come off as a loser, and I wish there was a dirty, great big hole I could have slipped into for 6 months over pre-season, then come out and started all over again. But then the buggers did the same thing to us in 85.
So were the functions pretty sombre when you did lose, and how did that compare with the celebrations?
Yeah, look, probably after the first 10 beers, I guess it was. But then once we got into swing, we were going pretty well. We used to go, the Hawks boys used to go pretty hard on the field, but also, too, probably just as hard off the field. So I wish, thankfully, there was no mobile phones back in those days. But we were always pretty good enjoying one another's company. And I think that's a sign of a successful team, too, is the chemistry and the camaraderie. But, we'd get over the Saturday night, then roll up on the Sunday, and then we'd probably do another week's worth. And then we were back in those days going off to those overseas games as well. So she was pretty hectic there for a while, so I was glad to get home and dry out.
Ayresy, you mentioned 8 out of 9 grand finals through that era, and it's not just lucky being born when you were and being a part of that. So what did you do differently at Hawthorn? Was it did you train differently? Did you prepare differently? Obviously you mentioned those great players, but all teams have great players, and you need a bit of luck. But what did you guys do differently to make you so special?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of things when I think back, and certainly we're talking about, obviously, grand finals, but when I first started at Hawthorn, 78 was a grand final year. The Hawks won in the seniors, that is, and I played in the reserves, Granny, and we got absolutely flogged by North Melbourne. I think it might have been about 10 goals. So 79, 80, 81, they weren't even anywhere near remotely getting near finals. So, and the DNA at Hawthorn was obviously about having success. It took them quite a while to win their first flag, and then we were probably indoctrinated with the Hawthorn way, or the values, as they would quite often talk about, and of course being a family club. I think Alan Jeans was, in my time anyway, the best coach that I ever had. And you probably feel in your footballing journeys that a coach comes along and it just seems to be the right time. It's how he says things to you. It's what he says to you, and he's able to get you to play consistently well. And then, of course, that was not only me as an individual, but it's also to the other boys. He collectively managed guys amazingly. There were certainly a lot of guys that had what I would say rather large egos, and he was able to massage many of those. And of course, he had guys that were able to fulfil and play a role. And I think we all know that squads win your premierships, and then unfortunately the unlucky ones miss out on grand final day because you can only play 22. And it was the off-field recruiting, guys like Johnny Platten, Gary Buccanara, Kenny Judge, Rod Lester-Smith, even though he didn't play in a flag, guys like Darren Pritchard, Tony Hall, and then later on Paul Hudson and Stevie Lawrence, who had big saves in the 91 flag. So The off-field administration was amazing, led by John Laritz. So I think that was all encompassing, and we really loved one another, I think, too, Rama, as well. And we had that very close connection. We enjoyed one another's company. The reunions that we have now, they're just amazing. The stories get bigger. There's more gravy added and more beer consumed than I've ever seen before. And we just get in a position where we realise our time's come and gone, but it still doesn't matter that you can't celebrate and bring back the memories. And, there's a lot of P1SS that's applied on those nights to everyone, but we still really appreciate it. And Hawthorn are very, very good, actually, at really making sure they understand and cherish and, celebrate the history. And God help us if we had a bloody went and merged in the mid-90s. That just would have been an absolute crying shame. And we never would have had all these ties because it would have been hard to go back to having no club.
So Gary Ayres has joined us on Vintage Grandstand. We asked Dermot Brereton about the rivalry between Hawthorn and Essendon. He sort of offered up that it didn't take much encouragement for him to want to put fuel on that fire. For you, did it organically form in that sort of 83, 84, 85 period? And did you genuinely hate the Bombers?
Yes.
Just think about it for a bit.
And I think it was probably born out of the two coaches in Sheeds and obviously Yabby as well. And even Sheeds tried to get under our skin when he said we were taking drugs by sniffing a bit of one of our trainers' magical eucalyptus elixir before the game, and that didn't go down well with Yabby, who was a copper at the time. So you can imagine anyone saying about his boys or his club that there was something untoward going on. And I think, again, when someone does something well, and of course they do it over a period of time, and both us and obviously Essendon did it, you're probably wanting to always know why they do what they do and how they stay at the top for sustained success. And even as a player, you were lucky enough to play State of Origin, and Kevin Sheedy was a coach for a couple of times with me, and of course you get to understand how he ticks to a degree. You couldn't work him out to a degree at some other times, but you certainly knew what he was doing, and you realise why Essendon was so great when you actually trained and played in those State of Origin games. So, I think there was certainly a hate on match day, but don't worry, we certainly shared a few beers after the games, and I think we enjoyed each other's company to a degree, and maybe Dermy was wanting to enjoy their company a bit more when he ran through the huddle at three-quarter time.
Dom from Reservoir has sent a text in on 0437 774 774. Gary says, what I admired about Gary Ayres was how he intimidated opponents as an extremely tough player, but never did anything dirty that I can recall. He was just brutal and uncompromising in the contest. Is that how you like to be remembered, Ayresy?
Oh, well, I'll take it. I haven't thought too much about it, I guess, but look, I just love playing footy. I love all the boys I played with, and the time of my life being, a 17-year-old and then leaving at 33, I almost spent half my life at Hawthorn, and it was just a fantastic time. Yeah, there was certainly some disappointments, but predominantly it was great times, and I just wanted to play a role for the coach, played a role for the boys. I hated missing out on not playing. When I was injured, I probably played quite a few games, and I would have been half to three-quarters fit, but Yabby backed you in, and he had no issues once you crossed the white line. If you got injured or aggravated a previous injury, he just copped that on the chin, and you got on and done what you did. But, I don't even remember a game, 1990, that famous day when Dermy wore the old half-inflated wetsuit, and I had a horrible corky. I'd copped two in a row and was virtually on one leg. And anyway, Yabby said, you two blokes, even at half fit are probably good enough for me. So he played full forward and I played forward pocket and ended up jagging 16 goals. He kicked 11, I only got 5. So.
Not bad. Ayresy, you've made such a great contribution as a player, as a coach at two AFL clubs as well. And I think now what you're doing at Port Melbourne, a standalone side in the VFL competition, to have the success that you've had is an absolute testament to you and your contribution to the game. So thanks for joining us again. It's always terrific to catch up.
It's great. Appreciate the time and great to reminisce, even though it was on a dirty day that we don't want to talk about. So
we'll do others. We'll do others that are a lot more pleasant for you, Ayresy, I reckon.
Get me on for a winning 1 or 2 or 3. Well, I think it was 5.
We will. We'll have you on every week. Gary is on Vintage Grandstand. Great to spend some time with him. He's a true ornament to the game, Gary is.
Imagine that, Lee. You 4 grand finals. I was 2 grand finals. 8 grand finals in 9 years.
Yep.
They had a permanent car park to the MCG at grand final day.
And the man, 2 Norm Smith medals.
Star.
Just deliver
Just
on
a star.
big occasion. And great that you said that. What he's doing and has done at Port Melbourne, tough standalone club in the VFL. And had genuine success.
He loves it, and he's so passionate about it still.
And our appreciation for guys like he and Dermy, who played in such successful areas, but are happy to talk about the time where they weren't successful, which takes a fair bit and says a lot about their character.
Yeah, very true. 0437 774 774 is the number if you want to get in touch with your memories. We're going to bring you the last quarter, the ABC call of the last quarter in just a moment, and then Kevin Sheedy is going to join us, and he's been in the news this week. He's on the board at Essendon, so he's back at the club and hoping he can help steer the Bombers in the right direction. Steve from Macedon, a 42-year Essendon supporter and born in a premiership year of 1965. Interestingly, Alan Jeans coached St Kilda in 65 when Essendon had won its previous premiership as well. He says, I was there at the 84 grand final. Great memories. Merritt's mark in the goal square in the last quarter. Leon Baker's spins and Tim Watson punching the air after the goal in the last quarter. And Gary Foles, the last player to touch the ball in both the 84 and 85 grand finals. Great show. Well done. Cheers, says Steve. Thank you, Steve. Much appreciated. G'day, guys. As a hairy 21-year-old from Launceston and an Essendon supporter, 1984 grand final. I wanted to leave at three-quarter time, having to put up with the Hawks' friends and supporters in the outer, but luckily I stayed. Leon Baker's goal, the grandstand shook. The cheer was so loud, says Dale from Launceston. And Jamie says, I grew up in South Australia watching Paul Weston lose grand finals in 74, 75, 77, 81 and 82, then saw him lose in 83. When he kicked that goal in the final quarter in 84 to seal the deal, I was so happy for him. By the way, I am not an Essendon supporter, says Jamie. Yeah, thanks for your reflections as well, Jamie. A lot of texts coming in, so we'll try and weave a few more throughout the next half an hour or so before we depart on Vintage Grandstand. But we need to get to the last quarter because Essendon fans, this is quite the celebration for you, let me tell you. 10-8-68 Hawthorn. Essendon 5-15-45 at three-quarter time in the 1984 VFL Grand Final. Let's join the ABC call of the last quarter.
Glenn James holds the ball aloft. We're about to start the final term of the grand final. Hawthorn going into this final term with a 23-point lead. They're kicking to the main scoreboard goal. Madden back on the ground, gets the tap down. Williams, the long kick out of the centre to full forward. Van der Haar and O'Halloran who takes the front position. Baker off the pack, left foot snap, and he's put a goal on the board at the 22nd mark of the final term. It's his third goal, and the difference is 17 points. Hawthorn 10-8-68. Essendon 6-15-51.
How important is Van der Haar? Like the way he did that use of the body, almost took the mark, but got it down to the swooping Baker who did the rest. I think that was a left foot snap by Baker. So the Dons, if you're in there with a chance, you've got early heart.
Okay, centre bounce again, and it's Madden and also Big Burns. Centre bounce by umpire James, a perfect one. Madden wins it, gets it down to Watson, being dragged by Russo, and Watson will take the free kick. And that advantage played on to Thompson, out wide towards Bradbury, who must be playing on the half-forward line this term. Bradbury the hand pass on towards Hurd. Hurd's long kick, a chance for Duckworth. He's outnumbered, punched away by McCarthy. It comes down towards Harvey, and he's caught with the ball, but he won't be penalised, about 25 to 30 metres away from Essendon's goal at the Richmond end.
Little duck of the head there. He might have been a bit lucky, Harvey.
Hawthorn 10-8-68. Essendon 6-15-51. The Hawks by 17 points. It's deep on Essendon's half-forward line. Van der Haar the punch, but it's taken away by Green. Here's clearing kick up towards half-back. Oh, Madden grabbed on the shoulder. No free kick. The ball spills. It's going to be a free kick to Russo.
Wallace.
No, it's going to go to Wallace at centre half-back for Hawthorn. Now, who's moving? It's going to be Curran, it is. Curran who's moving. The ball punched away by Weston. Spills down towards Neagle. Neagle's gone for a run. Runs from the wing on the member side. Up towards half-forward. Up to the high kick towards Stanhope to mark Bradbury. Open goal. Another goal to Essendon. Bradbury's popped it through. And Essendon's second goal in 125 seconds of this final term. It's 11 points now in the grand final. Scoreboard. Bradbury's goal. Hawthorn 10-8, 68. Essendon 7-15, 57. And the Dons have scored the 2 goals in the early part of this final term in the 84 grand final. Biggs.
Well, they're coming home with a wet sail, and I thought it was indicative just before three-quarter time, and with a little bit of luck, they may have been closer. Still, they're closer now.
6.5 minutes gone in the final term. Just 11 points the difference. Green with the free kick for Hawthorn. Drives it out the half-back on that southern stand side. A Hawthorn mark. Is it Mew? I think it is. He was third in line behind both Byrne and Madden. Mew takes the mark. Goes for the long kick back towards the wing. Brereton and Walsh. Good spoil by Walsh. Punching the ball to ground. Chance for Hawthorn. Eade over there. Knocks it back for Loveridge, who was very quiet in that third term. Loose ball is gathered for Essendon by Hawker, who's been a star. Look at
Watson
this.
it was.
Duckworth. Who was it?
Watson.
Duckworth goes for the short pass back to Thompson, and he takes the mark. 35 metres out from goal, directly in front. 7 minutes gone. Just 11 points the difference. A goal here by Thompson will make the difference. One kick. 5 points in it if he puts this through. He's 35 metres out the slightest of angle. Thompson comes in the left foot. Kick at goal.
Goal.
The umpire comes across. He's put it through. Thompson kicks his first. Essendon's 8. Hawthorn 10-8, 68. Essendon 8-15, 63. 7.5 minutes gone in the final term of the 84 grand final, and it's just 5 points the difference. And in this final term, Essendon have kicked 3 straight goals so far. Hawthorn scored us.
Great gutsy comeback by the Dons.
Almost 8 minutes of play. Final term. Centre bounce with umpire James. Big Madden. And let's see where Byrne is. There he is. And umpire James, a perfect bounce. Madden's won all the ruck duels, but Byrne tries to take it away. Grabbed by Foles. But Darren Williams gets the Bombers going forward again. The ball bouncing free at half forward. Indecision, a chance for Baker. Can he get it across? They're in front. They're in front. Oh, he's kicked it. They're in front. The Bombers are in front by a point. Baker's kicked it. That's his 4th goal. They got the ball out of the centre. And Baker got it at half forward, a bit of jostling between opponents, picked it up and slammed it through, just snuck in. But the Bombers in front for the first time today at the 8-minute and 15-second mark in the final term. A point the difference. Essendon 9-15, 69. Hawthorn 10-8, 68. 4 goals in this term to the Bombers, and they've got plenty of life in their legs at the moment.
This is Vintage Grandstand.
Kick by Judge. Curran the target. Danaher to spoil. Essendon have the numbers. In comes Matthews. Dipper tries to kick it off the ground.
And will be reported. Will be reported. Yes, he's flattened. He's KO'd Walsh. And will be reported. Dipper Domenico back on the ground after suffering an injury, I think, in the third quarter. And Walsh he's KO'd. Yes, they're calling for a stretcher. And Dipper Domenico has been reported.
Stop the game, please, until the stretcher goes out.
Yes, I think he's suffered a nasty one by the look of it.
Essendon, Dr. Bruce Reid running onto the ground.
92,685, the official attendance. They've got the high-powered glasses on Walsh. He has not moved since being dealt with by Robert Dipper Domenico. Swab wide of centre, up towards half-forward. And Curran is marked. Curran is marked for Hawthorn on the half-forward line. The kick away by Danaher. What a silly thing to do. He's given away 15 metres, and Curran now is within scoring range. Biggs, what do you do?
Oh, well, Terry, you're the captain of the side. You know he had to kick it from that distance. It would have been difficult, the long shot, but it's made Curran's task a lot easier.
He's been on interchange nearly all day. He came on to replace Brereton. He's taken a couple of good marks, and he can put Hawthorn back in front. They trail by 4. It's coming back. They're back in front, the Hawks, in the 84 grand final as the rain starts to tumble here at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. 18 minutes in the final term. Hawthorn 11-8, 74. Essendon 9-18, 72. And Biggs, the VFL grand final going right down to the wire. Exemplifies the great skills of these two top teams.
Yes, it certainly does. And Terry Danaher, if the Dons are beaten by less than a kick, you'll have a long, hot summer.
Essendon with 5 players in the centre square. Misunderstanding between Duckworth and Williams. Very silly play. Robertson to take the, Byrne getting the ball for Hawthorn. So they'll go back into attack without having to earn it. Byrne goes for a long kick straight down the ground. They want leapers. They've got Brereton from behind.
Yes.
He's got it. Not paid. Matthews coming through, barging his way. Gets a kick towards full forward. It's all Essendon back in defence. First there is it Thompson. It is. His clearing kick is good. Watson on his knees marks at half back.
There's a box on too.
Yes, Thompson and Jones. No, they just got their legs tangled up, Biggs.
That's all it was.
Hurd makes the loose man on the grandstand wing and takes the pass from Watson. He drives the Bombers back into attack. That's a good kick. Weston running with the ball. Should mark and does. Van der Haar's loose. But he's been quickly covered. A beautiful kick that by Hurd. Weston doing well. He's saying, I'm going to kick it long, right to full forward. He does. It's a beautiful kick to the kick-off line. Van der Haar the target. The spoiler is O'Halloran, off hands behind. 1 point the difference.
We might be back next week, gentlemen. We'll come straight out of the football season to the first McDonald's Cup cricket game. The kick in by O'Halloran finds Green, who made good space at centre half back, running past his Mew. He'd be silly, so he doesn't. They'll go out towards Wallace and also Brereton. Wallace will stay down. Brereton goes up and takes the mark on the crest on the far side. Yes, Graham?
Now Duckworth has had to be moved back to centre half back with Walsh going off. Peter, the
up
target.
To Matthews and Nobby Clark. He let him underneath the ball. A chance here for Hawker. Hawker's running the wrong way. He's in the back pocket. He's got to go right across Hawthorn's goal underneath the big scoreboard. He's going towards the safety of the boundary line, towards the member stand. Does it well. Didn't have any options. No one moving. Couldn't have passed it to anybody. So he's run right across the danger area. And the ball out of bounds. Right forward pocket about 45 metres out from Hawthorn's goal. Madden got into the back of a player, but no free kick picked up by Russo. Screws it back here, but nobody home. And the mark is taken by Clark in the back pocket. He'll go across goal towards Neagle, and Eade is after him. The pass not directionally good. Neagle's got to search for it. He's being harassed by Eade. Good play by Eade. Neagle! He's forced into the error by Eade, and he's put it out of bounds on the full. Kick by Eade in towards Matthews, who leads. Matthews is slipping himself now. He's got to be punched away by Clark, and it's out of bounds, left forward pocket, with Hawthorn kicking to our right to the main scoreboard end. And it's a point the difference in the grand final. Hawthorn 11-8-74, Essendon 9-19-73. Let's see if the Hawks can go forward. It's up in their attacking zone at the moment, but it's bottled over there in front of Bay 21 on Hawthorn's left half forward line, and it's out of bounds once again. Boy, what a finish. We could have a draw here at the MCG. The Hawks lead by a point. The kick forward by Loveridge in towards centre half forward. Matthews underneath it, but punched away. A chance for Robertson, or no one to hand pass it to. Curran is there. Knocked away by Hurd. The scoop onto Harvey. And the Bombers out of trouble from half-back. Harvey from half-back finds Watson, who's running. Watson takes the mark between half-back and wing. A little kick. Who's going to lead up towards Weston? Got a push in the back from New. And Weston will take the free kick between wing and half-forward. Van der Haar calling for it. He's running loose. Van der Haar there coming. He's got it, I think. Yes! He's got it. He's got it on the third bite, Van der Haar. I think he's too far out to score. The marking power back in the goal area. Bradbury is down there, and Big Merritt, and Baker for the crumbs if required. A point the difference. Van der Haar. It's coming back. It won't make it. It's whoever's in front. Oh, Merritt's marked it. Merritt's got it. He's marked it a metre out from goal. Boy, it had a big curve on it, that one. A torpedo punt, and it came right back and tricked everybody. But the big hands of Roger Merritt dead in front.
Thank heavens there's nothing wrong with my eyesight, Peter.
Hawthorn by a point. Merritt to put Essendon back in front in the grand final. He's dead in front, Roger Merritt. He could not possibly miss, and he has put it through for goal number 1 to Roger Merritt. The time clock showing 22.5 minutes, but I'd say of actual time about 19. The scoreboard in the grand final. Essendon 10-19-79. Lead Hawthorn by 5 points. Hawthorn 11-8-74, and in this final term the Bombers have added 5 goals to Hawthorn's 1. The grand final, 5 points in it, and the Bombers on top.
Everybody getting rattled in that centre. I see a Hawthorn player order Brereton out there. He was having a sleep. There were 5 in the centre, but Brereton quickly out. He responded very well.
Tucker's in there for the first time today as umpire Soars bounces. Byrne against Madden. Madden gets the tap down. Chance for Wallace. The ball is pinned to him. And it will be bounced as Williams kicks it up towards half forward for the Bombers. He'll lead by 5 points at the 23-minute mark of this final.
Let's spare a thought for the umpires too, Graham. They're under enormous pressure now with those little fringe ticky touch with free kicks.
79 Essendon, 74 Hawthorn. 23 minutes and 23 seconds gone on the clock. Byrne against Madden. They nullify each other. Tuck knocks it forward. Taken for Essendon by that great player Hawker, who kicks to half forward. Mew punches it away. Comes out to Byrne. Byrne a hand pass on to Russo. Russo will give it on to Schwab. The running Schwab gathers on the grandstand wing and has a bounce. He'll go for a long kick in towards centre half forward. Matthews is there, so is Curran. Curran is up. It's fisted away by the Essendon defence out to Dippy Domenico. He shrugs them off. Spears it back in towards full forward, and it's a great Essendon mark taken by Duckworth. 15 metres out from Hawthorn's goal.
Did it well, Big Dipper,
Bradbury,
then, didn't he?
Yeah. Bradbury made perfect place, and he's got it. Superb kick. Oh, he dropped it off his chest, but he recovers well. Goes for a kick off the practice wicket area, back towards the wing. Merritt, little bit of pushing and shoving from McCarthy. Does beautifully, Merritt. Gets the hand pass on to Harvey. Out comes Ayres, the player drawn. The kick, Van der Haar and O'Halloran. Oh, brilliant play, Van der Haar. Onto Baker, bounces through.
Yes.
For a goal.
His 5th goal, Baker.
Who kicked the goal? Weston.
Weston, oh, well, we've all got the rattles, haven't we? Thank God we've got more eyes here. And Essendon have made it, stretched it to 2 kicks in front.
11-19-85. They've added 6 goals, 4 to Hawthorn's 1 goal in the final term, and that was brilliant play by Van der Haar, who knocked the ball onto him.
What about the reshuffling that's going on today?
Yes, enormous stuff. With Duckworth answering the challenge, and so Weston, they've played enormously well, both of those players. Centre bounce, 2 kicks in it, and the Bombers looking to their first flag, I think, since 1965. They're going forward again. It might be another goal coming up. Picked up by Weston. Handball to Timmy Watson. Put it through, Timmy. He fires, and that's it. That's it. That has sealed it, I'd say. The Bombers lead by 3 kicks. The Bombers lead 12-19-81. They're running all over Hawthorn. They've added 7 goals to 1 in this final quarter. Biggs, congratulations, son. You've waited a long time.
Don't do it to me. Don't do it to me.
Essendon 12-19-91. Hawthorn 11-8-74.
Vintage Grandstand on ABC Radio and ABC Grandstand Digital.
A free kick to Payton on the practice pitch area. A scrubby old Payton-type kick. Matthews hasn't done much today, nor has Judge, but Matthews is marked in the forward pocket, left forward pocket, underneath the scoreboard, about 25 metres out from goal, looking down at the Hawthorn camp. And Normie Goss down there and Alan Jeans. I can't see Kevin Sheedy. He hasn't come down from the coaches' boxes yet, like some coaches do when they concede. The kick by Matthews is, well, it looks okay from here, and he's popped it through for his 4th goal. Well, I said he hasn't done a great deal, but then again, he kicked probably one of the best goals of the year. The scoreboard at the 32-minute mark, Essendon 13-21-99, lead by 18 points, 12-9-81. You let your hair down tonight, Biggs.
I think I will, Peter, yes, I think so. It's been a long time between drinks, or drinks that have tasted like champagne, and everyone will tonight, I tell you.
Merritt gets the tap away. It comes out towards Schwab, who's first there for Hawthorn. Now it's Green this time. Green has a bounce. Goes for a hurried high kick when he perhaps could have taken more time. Fisted to the ground by the Essendon defence. Danaher gets it out to Donnell with a good hand pass. Donnell runs his full measure from half back. He has a man there, Bradbury, to pass the ball to. He takes the mark right below us on the members' wing. Has 2 bounces. Draws Mew. Will go for the pass. Essendon have Harvey and Madden up there. And Madden not paid. Dropped the mark. Chance for Weston to come in and force it across the line as Schwab was there with O'Halloran. 33 minutes, 20 seconds gone in the final term. Essendon by 18 points after they trailed by 23 at 3/4 time.
From the throne, it goes from back of the pack to Thompson. And players over the top, Harvey there. Scrubwell hand pass. In fact, Tuck's only had 4 positive kicks today. The handball out of the fence by Hawthorn onto Eade, up towards half forward. A chance for Matthews. He dropped it, but he was under plenty of pressure. And Duckworth, a nice hand pass to Donnell, out towards Hawker. And Neagle running free. He can run in from here. Eade looks a tired player, but he's been on the interchange today. Neagle has a bounce, runs into half forward. A thumping kick by Neagle. This will really seal it beautifully for them. And he's popped it through. A magnificent goal on the run by Merv Neagle. And Bombers, you can celebrate over summer. Only 24 more weeks before the 1985 round 1. Scoreboard, Essendon 14-21-105. They lead by 24. That's 4 goals, 24 points. Hawthorn 12-9-81. Almost 35 minutes. Siren time coming up. Nick Kay is on the boundary, and Kevin Sheedy still hasn't come down from the coach's box, but he'll be inundated with players and coaching staff and trainers, but we try and get him if we possibly can. Set a bounce again. From the bounce, it's Merritt getting it down, and Tuck with his 5th only effective kick today. Knock on by Brereton from half forward. It goes down towards Wallace. A goal-scoring chance for Hawthorn now. Handball across to Loveridge, but his kick is a bit short, and the mark is taken. That's it! The grand final, and Essendon premiers for the first time since 1965 in 1984, having trailed by 23 points at 3/4 time. A magnificent 9-goal burst in the final quarter, and the scoreboard reads Essendon 14-21, 105. Hawthorn 12-9, 81.
This is Vintage Grandstand on ABC Radio and ABC Grandstand Digital.
An unbelievable final term. The Bombers kicked 9 goals. Hawthorn kicked 4 goals in that final term as well, but Essendon winning. Kevin Sheedy's first premiership as coach of the Bombers, 14-21, 105 to 12-9, 81. Leanne in Fairfield on the SMS, 0437 774 774. I'm crying after that Baker goal, says Leanne. Lads, well, great memories. I was in Munich at the beer festival when the news filtered through that the mighty Bombers kicked 9 in the last quarter to win. A big night proceeded to huge. Started dancing on the tables. 2 Aussies walked by, asked what the celebration was, told them the news. 3 Bombers supporters dancing on the tables. Highlight, Roger Merritt's last quarter, Herculean. 1985, got home just in time to watch the grand final. That's the way you want to win them. Thanks, says Tom in Point Lonsdale. Thanks for your text, Tom, 0437 774 774. Well, we've saved a very special guest until last on Vintage Grandstand. He coached Adam Ramanauskas at the Bombers to a premiership as well. So, Rama, I'm going to let you do the honours as you welcome in your former coach on Vintage Grandstand.
Oh, thanks for joining us, Sheeds.
That's okay. How are you, gentlemen?
No, we're going well. We've just relived the '84 game, which was magnificent. But we asked Simon Madden earlier. He was our first guest today. Can you actually tell us what you said to the team after that '83 grand final to inspire them to the season of '84?
Well, there's 2 times. I mean, one was on the ground straight after, so I just sat the team down to make sure we took it all in. And then we had a function after where everybody was celebrating being in a grand final, which wasn't impressive. So I lost a lot of friends that night and probably could have put my job in very serious jeopardy after '83. Yeah, after '83. But anyway, look, that's why it was. We won 50 games in '81, 2 and 3. We won 50 games and a couple of night grand finals probably by then and won nothing really. All we did was win games, but no premiership. So it was a pretty ruthless sort of function that I had to talk at.
Something that I think not a lot of people realise, obviously, Leon Baker was the second oldest player for Essendon that day. He's only in his 24th game. He had Paul Weston, who played 36 games at 27, Peter Bradbury at 26 playing his 36th game. Daisy Williams come back to the club in '83, and he was only in his 30th game. Can you tell us how you recruited those guys to the club?
Everyone was different. I mean, Leon Baker's really a fantastic pickup by Noel Judkins. We had to look at the rules here because the rules in West Australia that you had to at least have done 5 years for a West Australian club or play 100 games, I think it was. And Leon had not done either, but it was an unusual circumstance because he didn't take up playing for Swan District, I think, till about 24. So he played in some premierships there. So we got that through on a technicality from a point of view unfair advantage. The rule's unfair to Leon. Paul Weston, we signed him on a Form 4, and he didn't want to come at the time because everybody at Essendon wasn't sure about him, so I had to go and have a look at some games. And he ended up playing a lot of losing grand final sides, and everybody at Essendon thought, well, do we want to pick up a person that keeps losing? I said, well, if you put him in Port Adelaide side, would you get him? And they said, of course we would. I said, well, just pick his Port Adelaide player. Just people sort of get preconceived ideas. Peter Bradbury was, Noel Judkins liked him, running halfback at Port, who played and had come to Essendon. So both him and Daisy had been at Essendon before. And, of course, Darren Williams was a fantastic pickup. Jacobs, his coach, Graham Jacobs, was a former Melbourne Premiership player coaching Vermont Eagles. And he rang up and said, look, I think this kid's really deserving of another chance. But nobody really would pick him up. And our recruiting officer there that worked with Noel was Gary Lewis. And he went and watched him for a few weeks and come back and said, mate, this guy won't let you down.
So in the end, and I wasn't sure, 36 games, but what was 80, probably 36. That's a pretty good pickup, boys. So Paul Weston, well, he was an experienced player, and he could play in multiple positions, And of course, the other one was Billy Duckworth, and he hardly played a game for West Perth. Billy Duckworth hardly played a game.
Now, Sheeds, you were only early into your coaching career. You're only 36 years old at the time. You'd coached 97 games, and then you look at Alan Jeans. He was 51, and he'd already coached 430 games. Now, and I was speaking to you during the week about this, the youngest coaches in the competition are actually at the bottom of the ladder. But you, at 36, you'd already taken the team to a losing grand final, now a winning grand final. How did you ready yourself for moments like this?
I decided to coach back in the 70s, very early 70s. I went to America, spent all my footy money, and we won a premiership in the 73 and 4. So I just went and spent the money on developing opportunities and ideas and thought, what does a coach have to do? And American coaches are well ahead of us, obviously, with the amount of opportunities they had, particularly coming through the university, collegiate system. And, of course, I went to both of them and spent most of my money on going overseas. So that was probably the best first step thing I did. And by the time I was into my early 30s, 31, I think I played for Australia with the Harry Beitzel tour. Jezza was coach. And I liked him. I thought he was a really good person, Jezzalenko. So state games, I always listened to the other coaches when I played about 8 state games. Tom Apey, obviously, a superstar legend. So I had some very good, a very good base and platform to work off to get in my head. Yeah, I think I'll go for this, but I had to and wanted to do it full time. I didn't have the time to be a part-time coach. It was just going to get the same results as what the club had done previously, which was get the 3 grand finals, and I think lost them by an average of 10 goals, which is about where our club is right now. I think we got the 3 grand finals in the last 10 or so years, 12 years, and we lost them by an average of 10 goals. Anyway, look, that's why it was. A lot of pre-forward thinking, but I had to convince the board at Essendon, Collins, Stubbs, Brian Donohoe and Neville Gay that it had to be a full-time job, otherwise I wouldn't leave Richmond.
Sheeds, just thinking about this game, obviously, but coaching in general. You made some moves throughout this game.
Is that a dangerous red from Geelong, is it?
Yes, hello,
Sheeds. The one with the red freckle-faced smile should be doing bloody Jerry Right badge or something.
He is doing new commercials very much on the money.
Oh, wow, Sheeds. Thank you very much.
Rama, we did have a bit of fun. We didn't win every game, but we had fun at the club, didn't we, mate?
Absolutely, we did always.
Sorry, Big Red. Now go back to your question. I apologise.
Don't apologise. It's gold, Sheeds. The famous moves that you made throughout that game. When you're making those, are they planned throughout the week that if a game goes a certain way, we could pull these triggers? Or is that just a spur of the moment throughout the game, a feel that you get? Let's just flick it round a little bit.
No, but all these players played in those positions before I played them when it was necessary in the grand final. I mean, Bradbury, in particular Paul Weston, come as a on-baller forward, never really come as a centre-half-back or full-back. Daisy Williams, well, he can play anywhere, he's a superstar. Leon Baker always would come and tell me, look, coach, if my legs are looking heavy, don't take me off. I'll get you a goal or two in the forward pocket. So pick Leon, give me a bit of an idea, and he'll just come up and nod and look at you. Very quiet person, Leon. Hardly spoke. He's like Michael Longawanger, they hardly spoke ever, So Duckworth, well, he played forward over at West Perth. So they all played in those positions. It's just that when you recruit them to the club, we needed to find a couple of backline players. And so we need to play. Paul Weston is a very, very good thinker and a very talented, skillful player and smart. And Leon Baker, they're all smart players. Duckworth, very smart player, but they're always wanting to go forward every time. When are you going to put me up forward? I won't let you down. Mate, I had a migraine, with both of them saying, look, if there's a chance, don't forget me. Well, the chance come in the grand final, and we'll never forget them, will we?
Kevin Sheedy's with us on Vintage Grandstand. His reflections on the 1984 VFL Grand Final, his first premiership as coach of the Bombers. One of our listeners asking, Sheeds, Mark Harvey said earlier that you used Chris Langford's private schooling as a motivating factor in a game on one occasion. Did you learn that tactic from Tommy Hafey, the back pocket plumber?
Well, I didn't play in the back pocket that much. I played more out of the back pocket, but just, and he was very funny, Tommy, when he threw a barb at you, because I remember the day, stop finessing. Well, I actually passed the ball, which is quite amazing, because if you played with Tommy, all he wanted to do was just kick it long. And, when you kick it long, the players up forward would be saying, can you just slightly tap it over around 5 metres to the left or the favoured side? So I do that, and then I get blamed, So it was one of those funny things. But in Chris Langford's case, I always try to explain to our board that Hawthorn had the best zones and they had the best colleges in the suburban zones. In other words, obviously the eastern suburbs. So Hawthorn was always going to be the big problem. We never had many problems. But Hawthorn was going to be the problem because they had West Gippsland. Well, look, mate, you got a team out of West Gippsland with the Ablets, Tucks, Brereton and Gary Ayres and all these guys. Brereton was from down south. So how can you you live in Hawthorn, you end up with Lee Matthews and Dermot Brereton from out of Frankston and Chelsea or somewhere. Jesus, give me a break, will you? So I'd be trying to explain to the board, look, the team that we're going to have to beat will be Hawthorn. And they kept looking at me thinking it was going to be Collingwood or Carlton, one of the people that you never liked, or Richmond in particular, because they just won 1980 and 1982. I said, but, that won't last long because they let Hafey go. And when you let, Jeans out of St Kilda or Hafey out of, Richmond or, Norm Smith out of Melbourne, the clubs muck up. They never get back for ages, Anyway, so Chris Langford School, the halves would see it that way. You'd be thinking, I'm a high school boy from East Keilor or Keilor High. Ken Fraser used to pull me aside and used to give me a lecture on all kids are good at any school, Kevin. Get it right. Okay. So I've got my lectures from all the good people around Essendon, which is fair enough because, when you dog it about what you want to do and sometimes you're wrong and you've just got to listen when you're wrong.
Kevin Sheedy's joined us on Vintage Grandstand. Sheets, Matt Clinch, you go back onto the Bombers board. Why have you decided to do that? What did they lure to get you to come back and work in that sort of role?
Oh, well, I think they've averaged 11 since I've left, and now they're 13. Yeah. I think that's an alarm bell, isn't it?
I would say so.
They're a great club. You don't have to be a 150-year-old club to come 13th, all right? So, to me, I think I might be able to give some advice and hopefully help the footy department get some really good decisions in either recruiting or, whatever Ben wants me or asks me for, I'll try to give him my advice as a mentor, and I think that's important, and any other of the coaches there too. It's not easy. Go and have a look at, last night's game, a kick in it, 1 point. A couple of injuries during a finals match, which has happened to Essendon. Not a premiership, bad luck. Suck it up and get over it. I still thought 99 was one of our greatest years ever. Carlton beat us by a point, but we never had Hurd, Lucas, and Jason Johnston nearly all year. So no wonder we won 2000, because the team had performed so well in 1999, except for obviously the Plim, which Carlton, went on to play in the grand final and lose it. That happens. That's how tough this game is.
Now, Sheeds, obviously 2000 is the best premiership team you coach, but I know you study the game like no other. Where, in the history of the game, where do you rate 84 and 85 in your own mind?
Well, they won 2 premierships, 3 grand finals, and your team won 1. How are you feeling now, darling?
I think it was the coach's fault.
I got no doubt about that. I'm still getting blamed. I just read today's paper that I worked for a club that the board hardly ever wanted me. For 27 years. Unbelievable.
Hey, Kevin, You coached some characters, obviously, over your career. Who stands out? Who was the hardest to rein in? We heard Mark Harvey earlier talking about Paul van der Haar taking him under his wing. Who did you really have to keep an eye on back in the day?
Well, most of my mates owned the nightclubs. So I had a rein in that they never knew I knew. And every time I asked them, I said, how you going? You have, on top of your life and the world, everything going okay? Yeah, yes, coach. You happy? Oh, yes, you know. And then when they're happy, they're going out every Saturday night, staying out all hours, you know. But some were. Look, I don't think I ever coached Van der Haar, to be honest. I'll tell him that. You know, I just thought he acted as a player to appease me.
Hey, Shees, we had one where a listener messaged in to ask whether the 15-metre penalties were used as a tactical advantage. Can you give us a yes or no?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, you know, that happened. Yep. Now we have this useless 50-metre penalty, which is ridiculous. But anyway,
you think it's been
I think it should be 15 and 25. Yeah. I don't believe it's great for fans to watch. And sometimes the umpire might be very technical, or the play might have been an accidental mistake, you know. And I mean, I'm writing up what rules I'd like to see in the game between now and, say, 2030, right? So I'm writing them up there now, and I'll probably do an article in the Herald Sun or something like that.
We'll get you on the ABC again, Sheets, because we only feel like we're just scratching the surface with you, but we're just about out of time. So thank you very much.
I'll give you long answers. You're
filibustering. We've had a lot of texts come in today thanking you for your contribution and everything you did at the Bombers. So, and thank you from us as well for being part of our program.
No worries. That's not a bad. And to you, Mr. Ling, let's go back there and do some of those ads for Vegemite. I reckon it'd be good, or even McDonald's with your red hair.
Oh, brilliant, Sheets. Good to see you back at the Bombers. Thanks, Sheets. Kevin Sheedy on Vintage Grandstand, the coach from the VFL winning grand final side of 1984 that we've replayed on Vintage Grandstand today. A special thanks to Adam Ramanauskas, who's worked his contact book during the week to make this all happen for us. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll have another Vintage Grandstand coming your way very soon, but all of them available on the Grandstand Radio website. Just go to the podcast page and you'll find them there, or Google Vintage Grandstand. You can also get them on the ABC Listen app. Been a lot of fun. Look forward to your company next time.